you drink a bunch of it and then you find yourself in the future. I drink time water like crazy. Here you go.
This is vodka.
Time water. Just remember to hydrate or you'll wake up in the future with a headache.
You're the Jhoira, right? The hero of legends who fought alongside Teferi and Urza and Karn to defeat Yawgmoth and all of Phyrexia? You're not just some escaped mental patient, right?
So.
Tappy Toe Claws, how are you doing today?
I'm doing phenomenally. I mean, it's a Monday, so I suppose I have been better before. But as Mondays go, it's a pretty good Monday.
So it's a case of the Mondays, or it's a above average Monday?
I would say it's an above average Monday. It was like 55 degrees out when I woke up, and I'm definitely like a cool weather person. So I woke up to a little bit of a like misty morning, and then it never got above 70. So I had a good day. I got to wear a sweater, and I was content for the day.
I'm going to start right away by grilling you with questions, just because that's what I do. How do you remain so upbeat after a full workday? Because we're recording this on Monday night after you've had a full day of work, and I can barely keep my energy level up. So how do you do it?
I mean, I'm not sure. I think there's a combination of, I mean, ADHD helps, to be completely honest. Like it is something that like if I'm interested in it, then my brain does kind of like want to talk about it, and I kind of like.
I'll try to keep this interesting then. Yeah.
Okay. I'm also like I'm not too proud. If it wasn't interesting, I wouldn't be here unless I was getting paid. So don't worry about it. But I mean, I think part of it is that like the ADHD definitely helps, and obviously I have some iced coffee now in here. But also I don't know, like you only have so many hours in the day, and I feel like if I'm going to spend my hours in any way, I'm gonna find like some kind of way to at least like enjoy them. And obviously that comes from a extreme place of privilege that one, I get to like part of my job every day is like talking about Magic the Gathering, which I have famously called a dumb game for babies multiple times, but also like, obviously I love it, right? Like, it is a dumb game for babies, but I am also a dumb baby. So I want to talk about it and play it. But I also have a really, as far as day jobs go, my day job is really nice. I work for a little startup, and it's one of the good startups where everyone's really kind of chill, and I kind of get to like set my own hours, and I can have like my podcasts in. Like I famously, I love listening to the Cast, which is Alex Kessler and Ben Bateman. Even though I don't play Modern at all. But I just like listening to them.
They're just good. Yeah.
They're just good. And their podcast usually comes out on Monday or Tuesday. And then I just get to like take my friends with me to work. And I don't even like listen to half of what they say. It's just like I have my friends in my head while I'm like trying to wake myself up and make coffee or do my like the first start of my like lab chores in the morning and stuff like that. So it's really nice. I don't know. I feel like, and again, obviously not everybody has this ability, but I'm really lucky in that like I kind of get to set my day up such that I can kind of, if I'm not enjoying it, I wouldn't do it, I guess. Like, if suddenly my job got really bad, I would just quit. Like, if suddenly, like, Magic content was miserable to make, I just would stop. So I think part of the reason why people are like, oh, you're so happy all the time. I'm like, yeah, I kind of, like, I wouldn't do stuff. I don't do stuff that doesn't make me happy, I guess. I mean, and that's not saying, like, I absolutely do stuff that makes me miserable because, like, sometimes I have to fill out paperwork or, like, make a dentist appointment. But I try not to do that every day. Most of the stuff I do on a daily basis. Have
there been notable times in the past maybe you were in a less optimal situation and you kind of had to adjust to where you were today?
Absolutely. Like my previous job was I had like my stable corporate job. I basically was working for a larger food producer who's, I obviously won't say where I was. But yeah, I had, super stable. It was great. Like I got killer overtime because I was like the certified like chemist. I was the certified person on site who could do all the testing, and I would do like, we did a lot of import export of like products. So when things came in, I was the person who could sign off on things. And it was a great job. It was really good until it wasn't. And then when it wasn't, it was very obvious, and literally all my friends. Like,
wait, what happened? Did the company have a change in direction? Did you? Yeah, was your supervisor your boss, or?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I
all of the above.
All of the above. And also I think I became a little bit of a different person too. Like I kind of had like half of this other like magic thing on the side, And it was kind of this thing of like, do I do the full content creation jump? Because like, obviously this is kind of making me miserable, but like, I like having a somewhat stable 9-to-5, but this is now no longer a stable 9-to-5 because I'm like sobbing to Kate Bush on my way home in my car every day. So obviously this isn't like sustainable. It's not working anymore. And I kind of just decided that it wasn't a thing anymore. And change is absolutely scary. And even I'm the first person to tell all my friends that if they don't like something, they should just stop, as I just did. But at the same time, this was like a 6-month process of me kind of like coming to terms and like running up that hill, if you will, of like me coming to the conclusion that, this like thing that I thought was going to be a career that I was very happy with. And I kind of had like, it was kind of one of those things where I had like, I kind of had like the promise, like the vague promise of like, yeah, like when X guy retires, you're going to get his position and it's going to be great. And then like none of that ever happened. And it wasn't good. And so I just changed it. And now I work for a little startup and I have flexible hours and I get to leave work and check on my dog if he has, a bad tummy day or whatever, because my dog is very spoiled. And I still get to do all my magic stuff on the side. So
I'm glad you're in a better place.
Yeah, jumped in. Yeah. Part of the nice thing was like having kind of the magic content creation, like even if like everything went really south, I was like, I bet I can probably do like I can at least like that's like not a sustainable income. It's not like a long-term plan. And this was a few years ago too. So this was when I was like smaller and I like had been streaming, but it wasn't really like I didn't have a schedule and I certainly didn't have like Ultra Pro and like or any like solid sponsors. But I at least like did all my like I looked at all my money and I looked at all my finances and I was like, okay, like worst case scenario, if this startup thing turns out to be really south, like real bad, I can figure something else out at least like and I had a buffer zone. So
yeah, it's really important for the mental just to know that you always have a plan B, right? I think if you really don't like your day job, you kind of have to, like, if you can mentally tell yourself, like, I can afford to not do this, or I can afford to maybe not even work for X period of time, if you have savings or whatever, I think that makes not that this is a finance podcast, but like, I think it's really important just to always have options, right? Optionality.
Well, I think part of it too is that I think part of it is just realizing, because not everybody obviously has that like very unique circumstance that I did, where I knew that I had at least like an amount of money I could make on the side that I could do. But I think part of it is just realizing that like they're like, and again, this isn't like a finance podcast, this isn't like a career advice podcast, but like applying for new jobs is really scary, but like your employer is not special. Like, you can absolutely find something to do, especially if you are somebody who is enough in demand that your employer, like, wants to keep you and doesn't want to fire you. I promise, like, it's just a general life advice. Like, I promise you can find something else. It might not be, like, it may be different, but, like, if you were miserable, like, nothing is worth, like, staying in a singular miserable position. I don't know. I'm just kind of, like, a chaos creature who, like, I think if I stopped moving, I would die.
Right.
Like I'm like a shark, right? Like if I stop moving, my gills can't process oxygen, and I'll just.
You're like a shark dinosaur hybrid. Is that what it is?
I mean, sharks and dinosaurs have been around for a very long time. They probably never crossbred except in Ikoria, which was incidentally my favorite Magic set. To get it back to Magic, I'm sorry, this has like gone off the walls. This whole interview.
No, this is the humans of math. This is the method to the madness. I mean, it's like if we were talking about all magic, then something is seriously wrong with the episode. Okay. So, but I do want to kind of start with your backstory for those who may not know you super well, who are not like huge fans of Tappy Toe Claws, are not on the Patreon. You should probably get on that if you haven't. What's your story? Like, who are you, and how did you enter the kind of magic world? I guess we'll start with that, and we can go back later.
So
later in time.
It's funny. So we were talking a little bit before we started, because you have done you've done like you're very good at interviews. You do like the whole thing. You front load all the stuff, and you kind of give some context, which is really appreciated. So it's funny that I actually got into cosplay and magic at about the same time. Magic never became like a big thing. I guess cosplay didn't really ever become a big thing. They're
kind of intersecting things, right? It's kind of like if you do high fantasy and cosplay, you hit magic at some point.
I absolutely never thought about crossing the streams for the longest time. So I first got into Magic in Lorwyn, which was like 2005, 2004, because it was right when I got into high school. Because I started high school freshman year was 2004. I'm old, or at least older than probably some.
No, I'm older than you, so it's all good. It's all relative.
Every time I say I'm 32, people are like, "You're what?" And I'm just like, "It's just whatever." Yeah, it's no secret. There you go. I'm still younger than the professor, which is what matters. So
that's right.
But I got into
Lorwyn
because I really, really loved the art. Because I was a very, very big fan of like, the old school mythology that was like weird. Like the weird mythology. Like, yeah, it wasn't the Disney-fied version. It was like the fairies who would like take you into the fairy realm, and if you ate food there, you were stuck there, and you would have this wonderful life, and then you'd try to leave, and you'd suddenly age like 100 years, and you would just die.
So it was more like the Brothers Grimm kind of darkness sort of thing?
It was much more, and again, like all the fairies in Lorwyn are like half insects, and they were very explicitly, like they weren't necessarily like the good guys. Like the Lorwyn, I have some of the original, the published novels from Lorwyn, about Una and all of her like tricks to try to keep the world, because Lorwyn did this whole thing in lore where it went from Shadowmoor to Eventide, and I honestly like don't even want to spoil the story, because the Lorwyn story it's really good. It's really good. It's unique. It's wild in a very different way, and obviously Lorwyn was like peak like Rebecca Gay being involved in magic art, which obviously magic art is phenomenal now, but I mean I don't think anybody can understate like how just like formative Rebecca Gay's art was to so many people when they were getting into the game, and especially somebody who really liked art and like that kind of I thought I was going to go into art for like the longest time, and then I was like, oh yeah, no, I like the science thing and I can't actually just do both. So art was also like way more work than science was. So
really, I'm surprised to hear you say that.
Yeah, again, I think it's part of like the ADHD thing where like art is like sustained work over time. Whereas like I was really good at high school and just got good grades on tests. So that was like, it was a lot less work. I could still play like StarCraft until like 4 a.m. with all my like dumb friends and then just like pass the AP physics test, versus like AP art was like, I think AP art was the worst AP grade I ever got in high school. Because I actually had to turn stuff in. Like I had to turn in finished products, whereas like AP bio, AP physics, AP chem. I didn't take AP chem. I wish I would have taken AP chem. If you're in high school right now, consider taking AP Chem. It's like the hardest intro class in college. Take it in high school if you can.
Yeah. You challenge while you still can at a young age. Yeah. So back to Magic. You got into Magic with Lorwyn, and then
And then so that was around the time that I was like doing, again, when you're like 14, you seem to have all the energy in the world, because like we were into Magic, like I had a World of Warcraft guild that I was like super involved in. We were playing StarCraft. Like I used to be able to Zerg Rush really good, and I absolutely can't do that.
Of course.
The carpal tunnel. And then I also was running like, I think I had like 3 jobs, like 3 after school jobs in high school. But then I really wanted to do this cosplay thing, because a few friends of mine had like mentioned that like there was this. So I'm in Milwaukee, and I actually I went off to college, I went all around, and then I ended up coming back to Milwaukee, of course, like whatever. Lame, like, Midwest story here. But there's a big anime convention in Chicago, like kind of right around like the O'Hare area, called Anime Central. And some of my friends had gone to it, and they were like, there's this thing that you can go to, and people were dressed up like it was Halloween, but they were anime characters, and it was the coolest thing, and I had like never heard of that before, because I loved, like, I was the kid who like I loved like dressing up and wearing like kind of crazy outfits. Obviously nothing has changed. So when I heard that, I was like, we need to go. So we made these costumes that were like, my grandma helped me, and it was like I took apart like one of her like ball gowns that was probably worth much more than the costume, because my grandmother was this like crazy Eastern European lady who just had like an entire closet full of just beautiful gowns, and we took one apart and we made me like this. It's like, what if I was this like anime girl with this black outfit from this manga that these like, you know, like whatever. It was ridiculous. But it was so much fun.
Were you already into anime and manga, like that sort of culture?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, like again, so I'm 32, so I was like kind of at all the right ages to hit a lot of the stuff. Like I was super into Sailor Moon, Pokemon obviously hit like right at the right time. I mean, Dragon Ball Z was never like super my jam because I didn't like the art style, honestly, but I liked it. And then we had all kinds of stuff. All the kind of like Final Fantasy hit right around that time too, which also had that same influence.
Yeah, you've done a couple of those characters too, I believe.
Yep, I definitely have. So it was the place. It was the time of. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times because you had to go to.
It was just the best of times. There was no worst.
Well, I mean, you had to go to Suncoast and pay $40 for like a single VHS.
Oh yeah. Things used to be a heck of a lot more expensive. Yeah. I remember like buying anime DVDs, like the legal ones, and it was like 3 episodes on a disc, and it was like, you know, $40 or $30 imported. Yeah, I get you.
That was what it was. Like, this is not adjusted for inflation. This is what it was in 2004. Like, this is what we paid for it. And like, I mean, obviously we had, you know, we went online and pirated whatever. Don't say that, maybe. Like, we absolutely did. Like, names have been changed to protect the
Shout out to, was it Napster and Kazaa and all these cool things?
Yeah, you could download a few episodes of some cool new thing from Japan. And
listen to some MP3s on Winamp. Never mind.
Ruin the computer, while you were at it. Absolutely.
Okay. So you got into cosplay. What was that first experience like, actually going to that event?
It was, I mean...
I don't want to jump to conclusions here, but...
it was definitely, like, it was amazing. Like, we had a great time. We were, like, 14 and really dumb. But it also, like, I'm very glad that conventions are more, like, family-friendly now, because we absolutely should not have been by ourselves as, like, 3 14-year-old girls walking around in costume. That was, like, not a thing. And it wasn't our parents' fault. Like, they didn't know. Like, they didn't know what was going on. They were just like, oh, it's anime, whatever. They can go there. We're going to go to IKEA and shop. We'll drop them off.
And Sydney's going with her friends, so what could go wrong, right?
We absolutely, like, I don't think we saw another person who was our age. It was, like, absolutely just all people who were, like, at least, you know.
How many 45-year-old men tried to talk to you guys?
I don't know, probably a lot. Like, luckily, like, I didn't go. Like, again, like, I would not advise this to anyone. This was, like, it was not our parents' fault. They didn't know what we were doing. We just, like, were excited. They thought it was going to be, like, I don't know, going to, like, Mall of America dressed up a little bit or something, right? Like, or, like, going, I don't know.
It was just Halloween, right? Halloween convention,
So I'm really glad that modern conventions have much more of a, like, better
legitimate atmosphere.
And again, I don't even necessarily blame the convention for this. Like, we just, nobody really knew what it was. I think at the time, God, I don't even know, because I was like 14 and my brain hadn't formed entirely yet. But I don't know how many people were there. Was now, like, before COVID, I think ASIN was pulling in close to like 50,000 people. So now it's this massive event. And I think at that point it was probably, I mean, it had to be closer to like 5, maybe like 7.5, but it couldn't even have been like, I don't know. I don't really remember. It was really fun though. Like, we had a great time. We luckily were just kind of like dancing through, and I don't know. I was like like angry, feisty child. So I'm sure if anybody like was too obnoxious, I probably just like hissed at them or something. I was absolutely the 14-year-old who just like made dinosaur noises at people. I really haven't changed very much.
So before we go on to before we keep going with your cosplay thing, like, what were you like as a kid? Because you had mentioned that, you know, you're just a smart kid. You know, you didn't really have to try that hard to do well in school, except for certain subjects. And you played a lot of StarCraft and you liked the Zerg Rush. But how would you describe yourself as a youngster? Like, you know, as a teenager or young adult?
My story is like pretty similar to any of those, like, hey, I'm a millennial who is like a formerly gifted kid, like, kind of situation. Like, my parents were pretty staunchly middle class. Like, they were both very good people, but they didn't really know what to do with me. not necessarily in a bad way. They were very like, again, they drove us to like, they just dropped us off in weird anime costumes in a place. So like, it's absolutely, they were very supportive, but not really, they didn't really know quite what to do. And yeah, it was a lot of the like, yeah, I don't quite know why I can't sit down and do homework, but I definitely can do good on tests and be okay on stuff. So I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, I was always really, really good at science. Like I was also like peak like Bill Nye and like Miss Frizzle generation. So I grew up.
Yeah, we're the same generation, so I remember Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Yeah, I grew up on like Miss Frizzle. Like she's still like my icon. I still have to make the Miss Frizzle costume at some point. I haven't made it yet, but that's definitely one that I have to do. But yeah, and I had one brother growing up too, who we were pretty close. So he was only like 2.5 years younger than me. So we were both like just like the really nerdy like science kids. Like I was the kid who, I don't know, when somebody like, you know, another child was like, you know, well, dolphins are fish, and I'd be like, well, no, actually, they are not fish. They are these because they are mammals, and this is how they go because I read about it on blah blah blah. And it would just,
okay, so you were the YouTube commenter on the science videos before there was such a thing.
Yeah, but like the YouTube commenter who's correct though, like
who's actually right, yeah,
factually actually right.
Fact
and, like,
check.
Also did it again. You do it in like the kind of like you're so innocent that you just like you don't even realize that you're kind of being. I'm sure I was an asshole as a child. Like to be clear, like I'm sure I was precocious.
To be clear, I think most children are assholes, myself included.
That's true. That's true. A lot of children are assholes. But you know when children like interrupt someone or they correct someone, they do it in like a very earnest way. It's not like you're wrong. It's a no. This is how much cooler it is. Like dolphins are actually
you get away with it because you're cute and you say it a certain way.
Dolphins are actually mammals, and that's so more interesting because they have this much more different evolutionary pattern. And I still do that to this day. Like there have been many late night Magic the Gathering content creator hangouts where somebody mentions something about like killer whales and how they're like really scary, and I'll be like, you don't even know.
You can be the resident scientist and fact checker. That's awesome.
Killer whales are. There's actually like a whole different cultural difference between killer whales that exist in pods and eat fish versus killer whales that like go transient by themselves and like kill seals and killer whales. Anyway, but
right.
So that was kind of me as a kid. Just I wouldn't even say slightly more turned down version of myself because I got a little.
Was your brother a gamer too? Did you guys play together,
absolutely.
or
like my brother and I like we grew up on? I remember when we finally got an N64. Because we weren't the first kids to have one, but we eventually just kept asking for one, and we finally got the N64. And we got Quest N64, which was a really shitty game. It was a really bad game, but eventually we got some better ones.
But it's so bad that you still remember it to this day. That's pretty
horrible.
memorable.
It was really bad. It was so bad. But I mean, we had, we played a lot of Super Smash Bros. We played a lot of Pokemon Stadium. Played a lot of Pokemon in general. Actually, Pokemon was a huge game.
What's your favorite Pokemon?
My favorite, like the Pokemon game, or like my favorite single Pokemon?
Actual Pokemon, like, as in the one that you want to catch.
Ooh, that's really hard.
This is actually not a community submitted questions. I just kind of felt like asking.
I mean, like Charmander is like Charmander is absolutely
it's red, right?
One of my favorites. It's like the easy one to pick, but like I literally have like a collection of them on my bed. I bet that's.
I'm sure you have a tier list because you're analytical
I have
yeah.
a team of 6 that like my Pokemon team of 6 that I would.
All right, give it to me.
Capture and go.
Yeah.
So Charmander would be like my starter, obviously. My favorite EV is Espeon, so Espeon would be there. Lapras would be there because it's a dinosaur, even though it was a dinosaur before dinosaurs were there. Also, like, in all the Lapras art, it just has these, like, very awkwardly sultry eyes, and I love that for her. She's a queen. She knows what she wants, and I appreciate that. Right. And then I love Honchkrow, which is, like, the Murkrow evolution. It's, like, this big, like, raven gangster man.
Okay.
We love him.
That's a deep cut. I like it.
Yeah, the thing I love about Pokemon is that, like, however doofy a Pokemon is, it is someone's favorite Pokemon.
Right.
Which is just charming. Like, that's
just the genius of the whole thing.
Yeah, how is that not the coolest thing ever? Like, they keep making them, and somebody keeps picking them.
Somehow, us humans all associate with these fictional things that all they do is grunt and they just have one move, but it's like we're just into it.
They say their name. They introduce themselves. It's very
That's
nice.
True. That's true.
So that was 4. Yeah, so Lapras, Honchkrow, Charmander, and Espeon. And then Mew was my favorite legendary. Because it was a tiny little pink cat, and I could never have cats when I was growing up because I'm super allergic to cats. But I always wanted a cat, and I also liked Mew because it was kind of an asshole. It was just this like tricksy little pink shithead, and I was like, I identify with that. I love it.
Okay. Okay.
My other favorite is Garchomp, which is the land shark airplane dragon from Generation 4. And also, like, it was Cynthia's Pokemon, and she's, like, hot as fuck, so there's that. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's totally fine. I mean, you could say whatever you want. This is not a kid's show. This is definitely not for little kids who follow Tappy Toe Claws, which I don't even know if there's a demographic.
Like,
oh, no. Okay. Okay, well, we can censor it out later if you want, but you can say whatever you want.
They already know what the word fuck is. It's fine.
Okay. Thank goodness for that. So that's what you were like as a kid, and then you started your first cosplay. And how did your cosplay journey continue after that? Because it must have been interesting enough for you to actually, because you know how it is, right? Like maybe some of your friends are not that into it, but then somehow you're the one who keeps coming back to it. So describe your mindset, you know?
So I obviously like had a few cosplays that I made in high school, and it was always a fun thing because like I was never very good at sewing. Partially because like the first few times I tried it, it was really hard, and I'm like it's that kind of thing where like
you like things that come more easily to you. Is that right?
Like I can
science,
pick things up like initially pretty easily, but sewing was really hard, and I like absolutely screwed my fingers up on some needles a few times that I was like just really mad at. And then plus like I don't know, there was a bunch of people who like told me that like only girls sewed, so then I was like, well, I'm not gonna sew because I don't want to just be like a girl. I don't want to set feminism back 50 years. I'm not like other girls because that was
you're a rebel. Yeah, you want to go against the grain.
So then eventually I went to college, and one of the first people that I met who ended up being my college roommate and is still like one of my best friends in the whole world. Her name is Sam. She does not play Magic, but she's still kind of a formative friend of mine. And she was also really into cosplay, and she was really good at sewing. So she actually helped me make a few costumes that then we went to, like, when we were in college, when we were, like, adults, when we could finally make costumes. And then it was really fun because I had people who, like, wanted to work on the projects with me, and then we would all like go to the convention together back when none of us had any money because we were in college, so we'd all cram in the back of somebody's like shitty car that could like barely make it to wherever we were going, and then we'd all cram in one hotel room. Like there would be like 10 of us in a hotel room. Don't do this anymore.
Sounds like magic, basically.
And it was honestly,
magic players.
Actually, it's really funny that a lot of the stories that like some of the early tournament grinders are very similar to, and again, we weren't even competing. We just wanted to like go and dress up and like be weirdos.
Yeah.
And then in college, so in addition to like meeting this rad girl Sam, I met a bunch of other friends, and they were just trying to start an anime and like nerd convention in our college town. Kind of the first year that I got into college, they were trying to get this thing off the ground.
Okay, grassroots kind of thing.
Yeah. So they were like, hey, like, do you want to help out? We need people to like be staff or whatever. And I was like, I've never been staff. I don't know, but I've gone to like in the scale of high school and then that first year of college, I had probably had like, I don't know, 10 conventions under my belt or something. And I was like, I can do this. So yeah, then we suddenly started a convention. And again, I don't want to like, I came in, like, I was a first year member, but I wasn't like a founding member. Those were like a certain, like, slight set of other people who were my friends, but like, wasn't quite in on that. So yeah, then we started Daisho Con, which if anybody's familiar with Wisconsin, that was a convention in Wisconsin that ran until 2020, basically when things kind of fell apart because of the pandemic and a whole lot of other things.
So just to clarify, you're from Milwaukee, but you also went to school in Milwaukee, is that right?
Sorry. I'm from, I'm kind of from all over the place, but we ended up in Wisconsin for college, for high school, and then I went to college in Wisconsin. I went to college at Stevens Point. Because it was way cheaper than UW-Madison, which is where everybody else went. It was like $10,000 cheaper. So, since we.
Oh, that's a big difference.
Yeah, that seemed like and they also like they did the thing where they took all my AP classes, so like I was just like, all right, cool. And I think I ended up getting out of high school then I think I ended up getting out of college in like 2.5 years or 3 years instead of 4.
That's way better economically. Yeah.
Yeah. So they took all my AP credits. I crammed a few summers worth of classes in. I took some 21 credit semesters and I graduated early. So.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty good. But so we did this like Daisho Con thing in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. Basically smack dab like middle of the state. People are going to get mad at me talking about Wisconsin as a mitten because they like to think Detroit's a mitten, but whatever. Green Bay's here. Like Milwaukee's here. So Stevens Point. So we started this Daisho Con thing. And that's where I met like a lot of my friends and a lot of my like convention contacts. When like once I stopped working for Daisho Con, I still kind of had all these people in my back pocket who were convention people at that point. Like we brought in a DJ who needed a chance to try to DJ for the first time, and Daisho Con gave him that chance, and now he's my best friend. So it was wild. It was like a very this like crazy centripetal force of just people bringing together to make a convention for nerds in the center of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, you found your tribe, right? It sounds like.
It was very much that. And obviously, like, some of it's kind of paired off, but, like, there's a lot of the key people there who are still, again, like, several of my, like, best friends, people who I would consider, like, very, very close to me, that's where we all met. So
here's a bit of an insider question, which is the whole cosplay, because you've been doing this for over a decade, right? So
yeah.
What is it that keeps you tethered to it? Is it the community? Is it just like there's some intrinsic challenges in the execution of it, or is it something else? Because I'm not a cosplayer, so I kind of want to understand kind of how you approach it.
It's probably like more introspective than I've actually like gotten in a while. I think part of it is that like there's so many different skills about it. Like obviously like there's like the very basic, like if you're gonna make a costume, you need to learn how to sew, whatever. Which again, I didn't sew for the longest time. But I mean, you also need to like learn how to make wigs. You need to now learn how to, or not. I mean, and again, I don't want to say that any of these are like necessary skills to cosplay. You can kind of start anywhere, but like there's always something more to learn and always something more to try. Like there's always a new technique that somebody has come up with or a new material that's out there to try. And there's always a new project, right? Like there's always some new like character that you're just like, oh, I don't need to be here. I need to make this. And then
I can imagine there's always like, 20 projects in your backlog that you could do, right?
Yeah, oh,
so
absolutely.
it's limitless.
And half of them are like started or I bought some of the fabric for it and it's just sitting in my basement. Well, I think part of it too is, and again, I will freely admit it, like dressing up is fun. Like it's fun to put on a whole face of makeup and a crazy wig and look like a totally different person and like also like feel really good about yourself too. That's definitely something. There's definitely costumes that I put on that I'm suddenly like, I hate this whole thing. Like this was a bad choice and I hate it. Usually because it's like I made this
Is it the
too fast.
discomfort or is it just like you don't like the details on it or something like that?
Usually for me at least, it's like I should have taken longer on this costume. Like, I should have made it the right way, but instead, I gave myself 2 months to make a costume that should have taken me, like, 4 months to make. And so I cut a bunch of corners, and now it's on me, and I hate it. And that doesn't often happen, to be clear. Like, that's usually, like, there's a few, like, key moments that I can think of where I've put a costume on and been like, oh,
because with time, you get to know yourself better. So now you know if it's 4 months, it's 4 months, right?
Yep, absolutely. And now I have a pretty good idea of like, this is exactly what I can do in a month, both like with my time and also there's certain things that like, for obviously like fabric and sewing is pretty easy. You're just like, okay, you just have to put in the hours in front of the sewing machine and make sure that it goes. But there's other things when you're trying to make like armor pieces and you're trying to make props and these kind of like more crafty than sewing kind of things. There's certain things that you just like a set of primer, like it needs 4 hours to cure. Like it doesn't matter. Like it chemically, it will not set faster than that. Sometimes you have to set it overnight. So you're just like, okay, it will take like at least 3 days to make. It doesn't matter how much I work on it, right? Like there's only so much that I can do in terms of like me being industrious and me working hard versus like chemicals can set in this time.
Yeah.
So, and there's definitely some of that.
Are you attracted by it sounds like you're attracted by the challenge of it in some way, but then are you attracted to the challenge in terms of the uncertainty of like coming up with it or the certainty of knowing that you will come up with it?
I'm not sure. I think honestly, like I think sometimes I am just like I'm just a magpie and I just see like a shiny thing and I'm like, oh, I want to make that. There's so many things that I could make that I obviously just don't have. Like I'm only one person. I only have one house and so many materials and they cost money. So there's only so much that I can do. But it's definitely part of it is there's projects that I think there's a difference between projects that I'm like, oh, I can make this and I know I can do this in a week or like whatever. I know I can get this costume done in a month. And by a month, it's usually like, how many weekends do I have in the month? I have 3 free weekends. I can work like, 8 hours on a Saturday and like each of those I can bash it out. Cool. Like that's usually how I do my math in my head. So obviously again, I have a day job that I work. So, whereas like if I have a challenge project, I'll usually be like, I wonder if I can make this one part of it. And if I can make the one part of it, then the rest of it can come together pretty easily. So I'll usually be like, all right, can I make like the one weird thing? Can I make the weird wig? Can I find the wig in those colors? Or can I make this weird staff thing? Or can I find a dress pattern that I want to make and can I like it? Or sometimes it's as simple as like, can I find a fabric that I actually really like? Because it's oddly hard to find certain kinds of fabric for certain things. And that's one thing that has gotten like phenomenally better. There's been obviously a huge popularization of cosplay and of cons and just of cosplay and like kind of the whole lifestyle is maybe not the right word, but kind of the whole hobby as a genre of things that people can do. So not only is there now just like a incredible surplus of like cosplays that you can just buy. Like when I was in college and high school, obviously you couldn't have even gone and bought like a Scarlet Witch costume, which was like a character that people in theory like knew who she was.
You could now start from a foundation and alter it basically.
You don't even have to start from a foundation. You can just buy a Scarlet Witch costume for less than you can make it for, like typically. And again, like a really nice high quality like pre-made costume is still going to cost you probably between like, depending on how complicated it is and how many pieces there are, it's going to cost you between $50 and $300. But let me tell you, as somebody who's made a bunch of costumes, that is less than the like materials that I can buy to make it for you, or I can buy to make it for myself. Like obviously, if I wanted to make a Scarlet Witch cosplay, that was the thing that I kind of wanted to do for a while, and now I'm kind of off of it just because there's.
Well, what are your notions about like? Is there such a thing as cosplay integrity? Like, like doing something that's pre-made versus like I have to do it from scratch. Is there some feelings about that?
I think there's some feelings about it, but it's complicated. Well, honestly, it's not complicated. If you want to go to an event and you want to wear a costume, it is no different if you buy one or if you make one. If you just want to be a person in a costume, you should do whatever is within your ability or financial capability or borrow one or whatever. If you just want to wear a costume, you absolutely should. It's fun. Like I said, the reason I keep doing this is because I like dressing up like a weirdo. It's fun. It's fun to put on a face of makeup and have an excuse to look pretty, right? Like it's really cool. Or an excuse to look like a man, because I've absolutely dressed myself up like a man before. Or a fish person.
Like Jace or certain characters, yeah. Yeah,
because I've been Jace and I've been Ral, and I've been a fish. Like, so, like, you should, like, if you want to dress up, you should. And there is no difference of somebody, like, walking around on a convention floor in a costume that they bought versus a costume that they made.
Yeah.
Like,
we should minimize that sort of elitism or, like, gatekeeping,
absolutely
right?
Not. Like, there is absolutely, and I don't think, like, I think the highest tier cosplayers, I think every single one of them who is worth their salt and who has ever like struggled to make something would say the same thing as me. Like, there is no wrong way to cosplay. Like, if you want to have a costume and dress up, we're all just weirdos. We all just want to dress up.
Right.
That being said, there is a difference. Like, there are cosplay contests, and obviously that's an entire different animal, because then you're entering.
Oh, yeah.
You're entering, like, you're consenting and entering.
You're literally consenting to being judged
you're
on something.
You're asking to be judged. Which, again, like, there's a reason, like, I don't do that. Like, I know that I have costumes that I have entered for costume contests, and I've won some. Like, nothing major, like, nothing that I have an award for, but I've won some small regional things, because people are like, hey, that wig looks really nice, and I like the way that you, like, finished that, like, armor piece that you had. Great, cool. But I also, like, I know what I'm about, right? Like, I could make a costume, and I can perfectly French seam every piece of fabric that I have on there, so I don't have any flyaways on my satin stitching and stuff. But I also know that, like, I'm probably making a costume in half the time that it should be made in, and I'm gonna make it look so that it looks good enough from 6 feet away. That's my goal. Like, I want you to be able to look at me and be like, oh, that is exactly what that character is. It looks great, and I don't want anybody to pick apart my hands because I did not have time to make them even the way that I knew that they should be done. Like, I know how to do it the right way. A lot of the times I
right.
don't. And again, like, those are two different things too, right? Like, there's actually a really interesting trend in cosplay right now, where it's changing from a very, like, craftsmanship forward situation, where, like, when people used to go to cons and there was, like, these huge cosplay craftsmanship contests at, like, a C2E2, like, the big major comic cons. I mean, they give away, like, I think top prize at some of these places was like $10,000, $5,000 for, like, best in show for craftsmanship, which is phenomenal. Very cool. Whereas, like, we had, 2 years where we didn't have events of any kind. And suddenly, like, TikTok is now a thing, and everything's so much closer to your face versus further away. So there's a big shift, and now and again, there's no value statement attached to this. It's just, like, an observation. But there's a lot more people who now have, like, way better makeup skills, and they're all in, like, pre-bought costumes. So it's just interesting to kind of see, like, obviously none of those are really, like, better or worse. They're just, like, fundamentally different. Like, one of them is very much like this is, like, I'm really beautiful and cute, and I know exactly how to do the perfect makeup to make myself look good from this close while I do this cute little TikTok dance, versus, like, I'm gonna spend 6 months making
to get the seam or whatever it is. Yeah.
Or, like, even, like, I'm gonna track down exactly the right kind of, like, damask silk that I need for this grain that I've been seeing in, like, 6 frames of this anime that I looked up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both just, like, it's almost hard to both call them cosplay. Like, they both are, but they're both fundamentally, like, a different side of what it is, and neither of them is better in any way. It's just, like, it becomes difficult to kind of assess how they all function when you put the really good craftsmen on TikTok and they don't have like the camera skills or the editing skills, and then the TikToker with the beautiful makeup with the store-bought costume goes to the con and then is wondering why people aren't as excited about, like, as excited for them as they are for, like, the guy in, like, the massive foam armor costume that he made or whatever,
right.
What have you. It could also be, like, the person in, like, the full werewolf suit with whatever, with the full, like, furry mask that they have, and they look like the werewolf from Elden Ring or the werewolf from Bloodborne or whatever, like, they're very different skills, and neither of them are better than the other. They're just different, which is cool. And
it's hard for one individual to have all these things, because unless you have a production team that's, like, you have a camera crew, you have, like, someone for your TikTok, you have someone for your, YouTube documentary on the making of the cosplay. Like, it's very hard to master all of these things. So I guess for most people, they kind of just have to pick a lane. Like, I want to be here, and I probably have to be here rather than here. So there's kind of, like, I don't know what the right term is, like, trade-offs you have to make, right?
You kind of just have to specialize, right? Or, like, you can kind of just do the thing where you can just be a jack of all trades and kind of suck at all of them. Like, you can kind of just be, or not suck, I shouldn't say. You can just be adequate at all of them.
Average, yeah.
Which is kind of where I like to think that, like, I normally am. Like, I wouldn't call myself the best at anything that I do, I don't think. I think I'm just pretty good, or, like, I think I'm passable at, like, most of the things that I need to do to be a content creator.
But that's kind of what you have to be. I mean, maybe we're talking about cosplay, but also as a content creator, right? In a way, it's like you kind of have to be a generalist by design, right? You have to be you have to be good at a bunch of things. Maybe not amazing, but you have to know a bunch of things.
Well, and I think in content and in cosplay too, for that matter, like there's people who will get very, very well known for like a thing that they do. Like, there's absolutely people in the cosplay community who've gotten really, really big on Instagram for, like, the perfect wigs that they make. Or, like...
I was just going to say wigs, even though I don't know anything about this, yeah.
I mean, I learned about wigs, like, by, again, literally just, like, smashing my head up against something. And, like, we all had, like, the same 3 tutorials that we worked with in the early 2010s. And now there's so many, too. That's the other great thing about cosplay, is in addition to... all of the pre-made cosplays that you can get. There are so many more materials, too. So if you want to be somebody who wants to learn how to sew, or how to make foam armor, or how to style wigs, or whatever, you can just, like, go to YouTube and type in, like, style character from Final Fantasy wig. And there will be people who have put up their whole thing about how they did that wig. And it's phenomenal. Like, God bless those people who do that, right? And a lot of them have Patreons, and a lot of them have Etsy stores where you can buy... I mean, I just made a costume that I bought an Etsy pattern for like $3 for these foam head wings from these like crazy characters from Darkstalkers from Marvel vs. Capcom that we all played when it was like 2010. And it was amazing. Like, we didn't have those kind of resources. And it's so cool to see now that we do that the community has gotten so much bigger. Like, there are people who make like cosplay quality personalized individual costumes, just like go to a party or go to Halloween or go to Comic-Con once. Like, that's so cool. So in a lot of ways, like it's weird, and we kind of have to suss out like what we're gonna do about, and not that anything really needs to be done, but there is this divide in the community kind of between like TikTok and heavy crafters, and whether there are people who, there's a whole debate about like what's more skillful to make. Like, should you be able to, like, pleat every perfect side of this fabric, or like this guy made 6 foot tall armor, what's better? And like, that's hard to say. So there's absolutely like still qualifying debates about things that like really don't need to be debates. Like, in a perfect world, we'd just be able to be like, these things are all good. They're just different. But of course, like, it's hard to have a nuance.
I think debates are just the ways that, it's just a way that we as humans just sort of like externalize our passion, right? Because, it's happened since time immemorial. I mean, there's debates about, EDH versus CEDH. There's debates about what you just said. There's debates about what's the better console, like Nintendo or Sega back in the day.
Well, I'm sure there still PC, are. Obviously.
PC, obviously, yeah. It's obviously the Commodore. Never mind. Dating myself. But I think it's just kind of natural when you get really... I think it's like a combination of human nature, and you're so invested in your lane that you have to somehow highlight yourself by maybe saying that another lane is not as good for some reason.
Which, again, I wish there was a way in, like, again, probably the fundamental human psyche to, like, flip that switch and be able to advocate for your own position without simultaneously, like, shitting on another one. Like, it's not a teeter-totter, right? Like, one position can also just, we can both just be good. Like, we can just say that, like, makeup skills and armor skills are also really important, and if you want to be the best cosplayer in the world, you should learn both. And I think part of that reason is also, like, it's just more work to say that, like, if you want to be the best cosplayer, you should learn how to do armor and also learn how to, like, even guys, like, putting a little bit of foundation and some eyeliner on will just make you look better in photos. Hate to say it, like, sorry.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. But I think there's definitely, I mean, it exists in every community and absolutely exists in cosplay. I mean, I've been lucky enough that, like, I haven't really, like, had to be a content creator specifically for cosplay. I just kind of did a audible into magic cosplay. And I kind of
Before we go more into that, I do want to like touch on something you said previously, which is I think it's a very underappreciated aspect of cosplay, which is like the mental aspect of it. And I'll clarify what I mean here. I'll just preface this by saying that I am someone who loves how things are made. Like, you know, instead of like watching the sports team, I'll be reading about like how this team is run. I like the behind the scenes stuff. So I think there's a big part of cosplay that I can sense even as an outsider, being like how the thing is made matters, but there's also kind of a spectrum where you don't want to overdo it, because if you overdo it, it gets too inside baseball. It's too like gatekeeper-ish, and it's too much like I can do this and you can't, naturally, if you're an audience, right? But then there's also another part of the spectrum, which is just kind of like, I just enjoy it because I'm happy. And I feel like there needs to be kind of a happy medium of like skill versus just having fun. And I'm wondering how you see that. Maybe this is a false dichotomy, but this is something that I sense as someone who appreciates cosplayers, even though I'm not in it.
I don't think it's a false dichotomy so much as like, it's definitely like an observable phenomenon, right? Is like, you see people who are in costumes that, again, like people who are in costumes that look professional, and again, I still even like hesitate to call myself a professional cosplayer, even though like I know I am, because I definitely do not have the skill set of some other people that I know. But then I would also like, I don't know, I guess, and I'm not like trying to be humble, it's still kind of odd to even talk about it that way, because I also like in my mind, my definition of what cosplay is like, it's kind of the whole thing. It's like not only making the costume, but it's also like making sure that you make it on time because your contractor gave you X amount of time and you have to be able to do that.
There's like the project management, the scheduling aspect of it.
Yeah. So like in my mind, that's what being a professional cosplayer means to me. Whereas like somebody else might be somebody who makes costumes and like does commission work. And that's still like a professional cosplayer. So I think part of it is that just like the term cosplay is just very broad. So I think
it's like Magic Player. It's too general.
Yeah, it originated like, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. I think it was just a portmanteau of costume and play. They just put it together in cosplay. So like it was just a thing that people did. And so I think part of it's that. I guess since the term is so broad, I don't think there's any wrong way to do it. I think it's kind of for better or probably maybe in this case for worse on the onus of like the individual to be like, this is what it means to me to cosplay. And unfortunately that also puts you in the situation where when you get into like a public place or a public forum like Twitter, you suddenly have all these people with various definitions of what being a cosplayer means or the act of cosplay means. And then they all have to kind of cohabit in this space. And usually, like, in theory, that could be great. It sometimes very much is. Sometimes it's great. Like, there are absolutely times I don't want to just, like, shit talk and, like, sound like a total Debbie Downer here. Because there are absolutely...
Sure, maybe the one time out of 10 is great.
I don't even think it's the one time out of 10. I think we hear about the times that it's bad. I don't think we hear about the times that it's good.
That's true.
I think that's what it is, and especially
it's like the
Twitter,
silent majority effect kind of thing. Yeah,
I think on like Twitter, like the conversations that are bad are like the ones that get screen capped and
amplified.
It's like this person said that armor was better than sewing, and like that's a valid debate, but like it's sad that we have to have it every 6 months. Whereas like I think like when I'm and this isn't even like a touch grass kind of thing. This isn't even like an in-person interactions are always better than they are like online. That's absolutely not true. I've had so many interactions or I've seen so many where like people online are just like, oh yeah, like somebody posts this beautiful cosplay picture and like some baby cosplayer who's like, 16 or whatever, is like, oh my god, that's so cool. How did you do that? And then like somebody says like, oh, this is how I did it. Here's all like the YouTube tutorials that I used and something. And that person probably went and like learned a bunch. And that's cool. Like how could they have ever done that without the internet? Like unless their local library had like some patterns for that specific cosplay, like how would they have ever done that? And I think so much of the good stuff doesn't get amplified, unfortunately, but I think I think there is a better, like, there's definitely more net good than net bad, because, like, the community keeps growing. Like, there's obviously something here that people enjoy. And people keep kind of doing it, and people keep producing content for it, and obviously some people are doing it because they get paid for it. Me, and plenty of other people more talented than me.
But probably the minority, right? Most people are doing it because they just enjoy it.
I think most people are just doing it, and it's a very expensive hobby. Like, not only the cost of, like, the fabric and the materials and, like, the hardware to do it. Obviously, like, a sewing machine is, like, $200 for, like, a decent one, right? And the glue gun.
And time is expensive, too.
And your time.
So.
And then also, like, going to the, like, event. Like, these events, like,
right.
hotels. I mean, a badge for one of these events, like, is usually between, like, $40 and $80 now to go to. So these aren't, like, minuscule amounts of money that people are putting into this hobby. Obviously, people love it.
Right.
I don't really know exactly how to solve kind of that dearth of, like, I think there's a lot more love here than there is the very, very loud minority, and unfortunately...
Well, is there something that you wish that people who are fans of cosplay, and maybe not people who are doing the cosplay, because I think people doing cosplay maybe have a bit more empathy, but people who are just fans like me, like looking at your Flickr gallery and be like, this is really cool that Tappy's doing this stuff. Like, is there something that you wish fans like us could internalize? If you could, like, tell them one thing.
Yes. The one thing that I hope that every fan of mine, or anyone who is a fan of, like, a famous cosplayer, if you see somebody who is doing the same cosplay that I have done, do not ever tell them that, like, you think mine is better. Like, if you see somebody in a Jhoira costume or an Elish costume,
it's not a contest
or anything, like, do not ever, like, say that, like, oh, this is good, but, like, Tappy Toe Claws is, like, my favorite one. And it's like, that's, like, I love to hear that I'm your favorite Jhoira. I love to hear that my dress, high fashion Elish Norm was the one that you liked. They do not need to hear that, though. Like, that person has 300 Twitter followers, and the only interaction that they're going to get on that picture is them, like, hearing that you think that I'm better than them, which I don't even care. Like, objectively, whatever. Like, this is not about that. Like, I don't care that I'm objectively better. I might not be. I might be. I don't care. It's not the issue. I don't need to know that I am better than somebody else. I am already, like, I'm good. I've made it. I am happy where I am. That person needs to hear that, like, that's really cool. You should just tell them, like, it's like, I hate to say, like, that if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. But, like, just tell them what you liked about it. Just be like, I love this character. You did a good job. That's all you need to say.
Right.
That's all you need to say. Like, absolutely. Right. Like,
it's not a contest, right? It's not like every Jhoira in existence needs to be benchmarked, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's, like, people couldn't play Magic if there wasn't, like, 6,000 copies of, like, a single Jhoira card, right? There doesn't need to be one cosplayer. Like, I get it. Like, I'm glad that I'm the one that people like, but I think it's really cool that other people love this character as much that they wanted to, like, put in all that effort to do it.
Yes.
The other thing that I would say, just as a general, that's the big thing, especially as, like, somebody who has, like, a platform, and that's absolutely happened before. And again, people do it, like, and they think it's, like, a nice thing to do. And you're just
you're just groaning because they're also, like, tagging you in the replies, which is like, why are you doing this? This is stupid, right?
And then I have like, I've ruined this person's day. Otherwise, too, the thing I would say about cosplay, if somebody is not asking for criticism, don't give it. Like, there's absolutely a time and a place for constructive criticism. And again, you should never give criticism just to tear it down. It should always be like and again, this is coming from somebody who can look at a picture and be like, oh, the person didn't quite have their seams the right way, or they should have primed their stuff with this and they used the wrong paint, whatever. There is a place for that. If they ask you how they could improve, that's when you tell them. If they don't, if they're just posting a picture to Twitter, like, hey, I liked my costume today, and I posted a picture of it. Just don't. Like, it costs you absolutely nothing to just scroll past. Just scroll past. Just look at, go out, like, I'm not even saying touch grass, like, pet your dog. Just go to anywhere else. Just look at anything else instead of that.
Right.
And then the other,
or just hit the like button. There's a reason why they only have a like button, and there's a reason why there's no dislike button. Just hit the like button and keep scrolling.
Don't have to say anything. Like, And you don't have to say like, oh, I like that, but I would have done it this way. It's like, it wasn't your costume. Then
suppress that lizard brain. Yes.
Well, otherwise, then do it that way.
Yeah.
The best way to prove someone wrong is to just do it, and then just don't tag them in the replies, you goon.
Right.
And then the obviously like the final thing that I would say is that like cosplay is about the outfit, the wig, and the makeup. It is not about like someone's skin color or like the size of them, or even like whether they're a man or a woman. Like I've cosplayed Jace and Ral Zarek, like, and like people were like, these costumes are really cool, and I was like, yeah, and then I spoke and they were really confused. But it's absolutely not about that. Cosplay is about the parts of you that like, and I don't even want to make this sound bad, but like the external parts of yourself that you can like change and mold and adapt. It is not about like the stuff that you obviously can't change. Like every year we have to have a whole conversation about some beautiful cosplayer with like a dark complexion is cosplaying somebody who's pale, and then we have to have the conversation about like this character is white, and then somebody has to go like, no, this character's from anime based in Japan. They're actually Asian.
No,
So
this character is actually
wrong.
fantastical, so it's okay. Yeah.
Or they're an alien or whatever. Like, it's just ridiculous. It costs you nothing to, like, not shit on somebody who just happens to, like, have a darker skin tone than the cosplayer, or have, like, you know, be a little bit, like, thicker or a little bit bigger than that person. Like, again, constructive criticism. If somebody asked me and they were, like, say it was somebody who was plus size and they were cosplaying a character who was not plus size, because a lot of characters aren't plus size, let's be honest. If somebody asked me for constructive criticism about how they could improve their cosplay, I would make sure that their cosplay like fit them and flattered their shape. Because there are absolutely ways that you can do it.
Flattering for their contours, right? For them.
A lot of the times, like the people who are doing it, they absolutely know. Like they're absolutely making it that way. You're just being a dick about it. And again, if
I think we also can't discount the fact that like you have to be pretty brave to even fucking cosplay in the first place.
Yeah,
so don't shit on people for like going outside of their comfort zone already, right?
And so many of the people who are in these comments too are people who have never cosplayed themselves, and I think a little bit of perspective goes a very long way. In that, like, again, like I'm a professional cosplayer. I'm also like lucky enough to be like a 4'6" like average woman, everything dress size, whatever. But like, even I know that like I have absolutely not looked good in some of my cosplay, or even some of my cosplay pictures too. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
is like sometimes you take a picture and it just doesn't look good on you, and it's just nothing you can do about that angle, that lighting, and nothing you can do about it. So as kind of a wrap up is just like, don't comment on something somebody can't change. Don't comment with your criticism that's probably unwarranted unless somebody explicitly asks for it. And even if they do ask for criticism, remember the kind of constructive criticism thing. If it's not something they can change, don't even bring it up. It's like what we tell 4-year-olds, right? Like, have you ever heard that? Like, maybe it was just me, like, a kind of neurodivergent child, but I remember my mom telling me when I was little is that like it's the 5-second rule of like if somebody can't fix it in 5 seconds, don't tell them about it. Like, if it's not, like, a booger in their nose that they can get out before the picture, you don't tell them about that thing. Like, if their haircut looks
or an
weird,
unzipped fly or something.
If it's, if it's an unzipped fly, or, like, you know, their shoelace is untied, or their tie is crooked or something, you just don't tell them that.
Right. Because what are they going to do with it, right? What can they do with it? That's the thing.
They're going to internalize it and feel like shit for, like, the rest of who knows how long. Like, comments cut really deep, and compliments are very... That's the other thing, too, is, like, I'm not above it. Like, I can have freaking 50 people in a reply saying, like, this is the best costume. Oh my God, it looks great. And then one person can be like, I think that shade of blue is, like, kind of wrong. I think it should be that. And it could be that innocuous. It could be nothing else. It could just be like, I think it's more of a purple than it is a blue. And that is all I will think about.
That's the one you're going to remember for the whole week.
All I will think about that costume. And then I'll either change it or I'll never wear the costume again. Like, it is like that much. So 5 seconds.
I've never heard the 5-second rule until now, but I definitely just have a rule, which is like, don't say something on the internet that you wouldn't say to someone's face, basically. Like, cause there are things that people say on the internet that I hate to use violence, but that could warrant a slap or a punch in real life. Like, if you actually went up to that person.
There's a reason people don't say it in real life. That's the thing. It's like, there's a reason people don't say it face to face.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I know you said that you wanted to wrap this up, but
No, I've got plenty of time.
Okay, okay. No, I just meant the cosplay part.
Yeah,
but
no, but-
I do also want to ask you, like, where are you on the spectrum of like cosplay in terms of really mentally becoming that character? Because I've seen varying aspects of it. There's some people that are just kind of like happy to dress the part, and then they're still them. But when you are Jhoira, or when you are, I mean, that's maybe not a great example because you were role playing and or acting in the video,
Yeah.
but with Prof. But like in general, like, are you on the I am that character camp, or are you somewhere else in that spectrum?
I would say that I'm probably like 25% like into, like, if here is I don't want to act at all, I'm like 25% into it, because like,
Okay.
I obviously, generally I like the character. If I'm gonna go through the, like, obviously we've talked about the,
You have an affinity, or you like the aesthetic, right?
Yeah, obviously I'm like into it or whatever. But at the same time, there are certain people who you interact with at events who like they just want to come up to you and be like, Tappy, we know who you are. Like, Tappy Toe Claws, will you sign my Jhoira or whatever? And they'll ask me to sign it whether I'm dressed as whomever, right? And they don't want to have me be like, haha, I'm Jhoira, blah, blah, blah. Whatever.
They don't want to have to communicate in High Elvish to you
They
and
don't
stuff like
have
that.
to like do the whole shtick. Whereas like,
Yeah.
alternatively, like, some people will come up to me. It usually happens when I'm Jhoira, and people will come up to me when I'm Jhoira, and they will quote lines from like the Prof videos and stuff. And Jhoira is like kind of a unique case though, because that character is like, yes, I'm acting, but that is kind of just me. Like, that's just me turned up to like 11. Like, that's just me acting, and then that just kind of became the personality of the character just by nature of Prof's reach. And
Yeah, because the original Jhoira doesn't have much of a character.
yeah,
Let's be honest, it's just a
she's
card,
the person
right?
on there, and she had always been one of my favorites. And so when I met Prof when we filmed that video, he was just like, "You're perfect. Whatever you're doing is great." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll just be manic."
Because this is a blank canvas, right? Which is awesome.
So like,
yeah.
we just kind of took on the character and we just kind of ran with it. But yeah, I would say that like most cosplayers, like obviously most cosplayers is heavy air quotes, but most cosplayers are willing to like do a pose that is like very like that character. Like, obviously when I'm Chandra, I'll like strike like very different like poses than like when I'm Elishnorn, whereas I'll be like and like look down at people and like whatever. It's totally different. But like, I also like, I'm not gonna be in that character all day. That would be exhausting. Like, I'm not like, obviously there's like, I think the high end of this is like people who are like paid to be like actor cast members at Disney to like be the character.
That's
like,
exactly what I was thinking. That's like the first experience that a lot of people have, myself, with like people in character, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But those are also people who are picked, like, those aren't people who make their costumes. Those aren't people who have who spend all the time like developing the skills to do that. They're hired actors whose faces,
literal paid actors, yes.
Yeah, well, they're also like, again, like Disney, for better or for worse. Like, they hire people because they want the princess face. Like, you will not get hired for Snow White if you don't look like Snow White. Like, you cannot be Elsa unless you can sing Let It Go. Like, right? Like, that's... Whereas, like, anybody can cosplay Elsa, and that's totally correct.
Right.
Like, because it's not... In no way is it kind of, like, gate-kept like that in the way that, like, Disney specifically is. Whereas it's also, I think, unfair for people to expect like a random unpaid person who's also just an attendee to this event to like be the character if they're looking for that. Like, you're not gonna get that. Like, could you nicely ask for a picture and they'll probably strike a pose just like that character does, whatever, right? Like, if you know there's a particular like pose that the character does, you could politely ask them to do that, or like if you want to record them saying a line, maybe like be like, hey, like, Tappy, will you say like, haha, time water, drink up, or whatever? And of course I'd be happy to, but one, like, you should politely ask, and the answer can always be no. If you're politely asking, you should be willing to expect.
Are you always happy to though? Because I could imagine that there's some interactions that are like, I hate to use the word, but there could be some interactions I can just imagine that are kind of cringe. Like if you're Elishnorn and somebody comes up to you and starts speaking Phyrexian because they memorized the language or whatever.
Like, if somebody started speaking for
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's like,
sure.
what happens when you're 25% in your character and they're coming up to you as a fan and they're 100% into it? And then what happens then? Like, there must be some awkwardness with that too,
I'm not
right?
gonna lie, like, there's always a little bit of awkwardness. Like, it's two human beings interacting with each other with flawed mechanisms, right? Like, our brains are not necessarily made for, like, the very, very deep level of social contact that we now have with all of this extra internet crap, like, loaded on top of it as baggage. That's just not a thing.
Mhm.
We have not evolved that fast. That's not a thing that we can do. But, I mean, honestly, people who, as a general rule, people who come up to me or any cosplayer, and you nicely and respectfully, like, ask for exactly what you'd like. Like, if what you want is, like, a picture with Jhoira and we want to pretend we're drinking or whatever, sure, perfect, let's do it. Or, like, hey, Tappy, can you get, like, a, drink up me hearties, yo-ho, I'm the drunken captain. Perfect, let's do it. It's the people who don't quite know what they want when they're just like, oh, this is the person, and they're a person in a costume, or they're a famous person, famous from the internet, and they don't quite know. That's the thing that gets a little bit more awkward, because you don't want to let them down. You don't want to, like, be a dick to this person who just thinks you're cool, but at the same time, like, you don't have, like, I can't be your person. I can't, like, walk you through this experience, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know what to do for you, friend. Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy to, like, be like, do you want a picture? Do you want to take a selfie real quick? Cool, like, let's do it. Like, we'll give you some options, but the best thing to do if you want something from a cosplayer is to, like, very respectfully ask, like, whether you want a selfie with
Right.
us, or whether you want a picture, like, of the two of us together, or whether you want us, like, doing a thing, or if we're already interacting with a bunch of people, you might have to wait in line a little bit, like, because there are people around. Just it's a general thing of just, like, know if there's a thing that you want that's more specific than, like, if you want a card sign or something like that, like, come with a Sharpie. Because I don't have pockets. Actually, on Jhoira, but, like, in Elish Norn, I absolutely don't have pockets, brother. Like, where am I supposed to
You're
put
probably
that?
not cosplaying as someone with a purse most of the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jhoira has bags and pockets and all kinds of stuff, but not everybody does.
Yeah.
So, like, if you want a card signed, like, the best way to get a card signed from us is to, like, have a Sharpie. Like, that's the best. Like, just come prepared and know what you want. Or, like, if you really want to tell, if it's me and Olivia hanging out at Ultra Pro's booth or whatever, and you really want to tell Olivia about, like, a thing about Commander, or you want to tell her about, like, the Commander deck that you just built or whatever, like, a like, minute and a half long spiel about, like, I just built this deck, I think it was really cool, thanks for being
Please,
cool.
no 15-minute monologues. Yeah,
or, like,
move
at
on.
least, like, I understand, too, that sometimes you can get in a little bit of the blabber space. I've been there myself. I understand that it happens. But just know that if we, like, kind of politely excuse ourselves and, like, leave, that's because we have to, like, see 10 other people.
Yeah. That's so hard. I mean, this is
really
kind of a
hard.
conversation that I wish I had, like, 10 years ago, because I've never done anything that I think can be classified as really cringe, but I've definitely seen my share of cosplayers when I play Magic events,
Sure.
and most of the time I just don't really know how to approach them. Like, the most I've done is basically just go up to them, and I try to make sure I don't do anything crazy. Like, just please respect their boundaries. Like, don't touch them, and just say hi, make eye contact, and just say, like, I really like your costume. Can I have a picture with you? And actually, a lot of cosplayers are nice about it too. They kind of know the presets, so they'll actually say, like, do you want me to do pose A or pose B? I can do that.
Yeah.
It's like, they're really, that's when you know they're the real pros. like,
Yeah.
you know.
Generally, if we're there dressed up, we don't mind getting photos. Usually the issue when we want photos is, like, sometimes we'll be, like, adjusting a part of the costume, or we'll be, like, eating or taking a drink, or, like, checking our makeup in something. Like, please don't take pictures of us then. Or, like, when
we don't need
when
the
we're talking to each
behind-the-scenes
other or
stuff.
something. Like, listen, I'm very animated and I make a lot of big faces.
Yeah.
I promise you will get a better picture if you ask us to pose.
Yeah,
than
there's
when
no
it's
need
me,
to have
like,
sneaky photos and stuff.
Gesticulation. Like, it's not going to be good. Like, you'll get a better picture if you ask. Or even, like, if we're already posing for somebody else's picture, you can probably take a picture. Like, that's probably fine. But if we're, like, in a mid-conversation, I'm, like, wildly flailing my arms or fixing something, you're going to
Gesticulating,
get a better picture if you ask. Like, as a general. And again, like, there isn't like a hard, fast, like, black ink playbook about how exactly you do this. The general rules are just, like, be respectful, kind of basically just ask nicely. If you want something specifically, let us know. If we like, ask us for it. If we can't do it right then, because sometimes we're like in the middle of a game too. Like if we're playing Magic or something, generally not the best time to ask for a picture. But if we're like standing around, obviously doing kind of like a meet and greet or something, that's absolutely the time to come. Usually when we're at events, there will be like a schedule or some kind of statement about like, we'll be around, walking around for pictures to talk to people, or we will be at a booth, like we'll be at the Ultra booth for this amount of time to take pictures and talk to you or whatever, or we have a meet and greet at this time and we'll be sitting down to sign stuff or whatever. So just, it's kind of a best judgment thing too. Like, and nobody's gonna like, I promise you, for all that I remember, like a lot of cringe in my life, I don't remember anybody specific. Like, it's like, I promise I don't, like, if you think you've done something very cringe to me at an event, I promise you I was probably dehydrated, really tired, and did not have enough caffeine or food. So I just remember that I was like, oh yeah, this one day somebody came up to me and they like couldn't remember what they wanted, and then they asked me for a signature. They didn't have a pen. We like had to find one. And I just remember like the incident as one of 12, not you as a person.
Yeah.
Like,
it's no big deal, right?
Yeah, it's really no big deal. Like, the easier we can play it off, the easier it'll be for everybody.
Nice. Okay, well, I mean, in terms of like inhabiting the character, you said 25%. I guess another question is not really related to this. Is like, what have you had any like really tough times as a cosplayer, just in any aspect? Like maybe like you're really struggling to complete something, or like you like just hard to be in a certain mental state of being. Like, are there any like harder times that maybe you can share?
I mean, obviously, like costumes that are more, there's definitely costumes that are like just physically harder to wear. Like Jhoira is really comfortable. Jhoira it's corseted, but it's like corsets are actually like structural garments to go under clothes, so they're not inherently uncomfortable, even though like Disney and other films would have you believe otherwise. But Jhoira's really comfortable for the most part. There are costumes that are absolutely way more work to wear. Like Elish Norn is this massive dress, and I'm usually in like crazy heels and all kinds of stuff. So that's usually a little bit harder. We usually try to like limit the amount of time that we're in the more uncomfortable costumes. Cause like, again, like if I'm going to be a bitch, if I'm going to be like a sad, uncomfortable witch woman, I don't want to be around people. Like that's not, who does that serve? That doesn't do anybody any good. So we'll usually just like make kind of amendments per the costumes. And also too, we usually have somebody who's like our handler to make sure that like, if we have, like somebody, if I'm in Elish Norn, like I have a person who's carrying my wallet and my cell phone, because like I don't have space for that. And also just making sure that like, because that train is like 9 feet long, so I have somebody walking behind me to make sure that nobody like steps on me or like causes any problems like that. So that's definitely nice. Like it absolutely like takes a village. Like the reason that we are able to do this is because we have people around us who are helping. And I mean, even like getting in a costume, like I have a lot of costumes that I can't get into myself. Like I can't even get into Chandra by myself. That armor like laces up in the back. But even then, like there's absolutely times when it's just like, I've been in this costume for a long time, and you can just like feel the blood sugar crash happen. Like, I think this year at Gen Con, I think one of my friends said that they just saw me like power down. Like you could just see like
just crash kind of thing.
You just see like the blood sugar. I was just like, you could just like see it.
The smile is slowly fading away.
And you can, and then you usually just like, you set yourself up such that like, in a professional capacity, you set yourself up such that you can like remove yourself when that happens. Because you're not like,
what's the solution? Just drink lots of iced coffee and have lots of candies, or what?
Usually, so it's one, again, really what it is having at least one person like who's not in costume around to like shepherd you around. And then you also have the person too to like, they're the third party. It's kind of that like, anybody who is famous kind of knows this, where like, you have to be nice because you have to be Tappy Toe Claws and you can't disappoint anybody. So you have to have that friend who's the asshole. And not even the asshole, but they're the person who like,
good cop, bad cop dynamics.
If that one person like can't stop talking because they're kind of on the loop and like whatever.
You gotta be like move along.
You
Yeah,
have the
you
nice
gotta.
who's like, hey, we gotta get to our thing, and he just kind of shuffles you away, or they, she, they, whoever, or just does, and that's super nice to have. Is just the person who like kind of keeps you on your schedule. Also too, like you kind of learn after a while, like that there's absolutely like better ways to make costumes and that ways that they're more comfortable. Especially that's another thing that like. The idea versus like craftsmanship versus like what is a pro cosplayer? Like, are you trying to make the best, most perfect, accurate, greatest to look at costume, or are you trying to make a costume that somebody can stand in front of a booth for 4 hours and talk to people in? Because those are very different.
The practical aspects. Yeah.
So like there's absolutely costumes that I've made choices that
like you could wear heels, but maybe wearing sneakers and they don't see your sneakers is perfectly fine.
Wearing like boots with less of a heel, and then you can get like the gel insole in there, or like cheating a pocket into something, or just making armor out of foam instead of plastic, like instead of hard plastic. So like, oh, if I make it out of foam,
weighs less.
Gonna be less than a pound. Whereas if I make it out of plastic, it's going to be
there's
5
also
pounds.
Those breathability concerns, right, that you're touching on.
It's temperature, it's everything. It's just, and also sometimes it's just how comfortable it is. Like sometimes you look at a fabric and the fabric looks beautiful, and then you like try to put it into a garment and you're like, nope, can't do that. Like that's not going on my skin. Like, anyway.
I think that's actually kind of like a similar experience for us muggles who are like, you know, you're shopping for clothing and it's like, oh, it looks great on the rack, and then you wear it and it's like, this totally looks like crap on me and I can't get this.
And I also have costumes that I like feel way better in than others. Like there are costumes that like feel completely natural, and then there are costumes that like I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I gotta make sure I'm like all right and into this.
Like when you become Jhoira, I can tell that you're like really comfortable in it.
Yeah,
like it shows in your expressions and how you like verbalize yourself. Like it's just really, you're at home, right? So yeah, that's awesome. So tell me how you went from doing all this stuff to getting into magic content creation. Like what was the inflection point or whatever you call that, you know?
It's a long story, but I hope it's a good one.
A good one.
I went to the big Magic Fest in Vegas in 2017. The pandemic is like totally screwed with my conception of time. Like just
everything before the pandemic feels like a million years ago.
It feels like before and then after, right? 2017 I went because I had met Christine Sprinkle and 2 other Magic cosplayers who were phenomenal. That's Matt and Jin. They're Jackal costuming. They're the ones with the big Johnny costume. The big furry
very well
Johnny
known
costume. That's amazing. So I had met them at Gen Con actually one year, and the 2 of them, and also I cannot speak highly enough of Christine Sprinkle as a person. Like I used to go to Gen Con in a Magic costume just so that I could like have an excuse to hang out with Christine Sprinkle for like 2 hours. And we just like would hang out and like just shoot shit and talk for 2 hours. And it was just phenomenal. And she's literally like always had been the most down to earth, lovely human being, and she just loved what she was doing, and she was so talented, and her like makeup skills were also just phenomenal. Like at that point I didn't have anywhere near the makeup skills that she did, and I just wanted to like look at her and be like, your eyes are amazing. I can't understand. So then I got invited to this thing. They were doing this art show in 2017 at this Magic thing that like Mike Linneman and like Moxie at the time, she's not on Twitter anymore, but they had kind of all organized this. There was a bunch of like original pieces of Magic art all there. And they wanted a bunch of cosplayers to kind of like go there. They'd actually like done like a crowdfund, and if they hit a specific goal, they were going to like help finance a little bit of the cosplay cost. So we went there, and it was just phenomenal. It was just such a good time. It was so much fun. At that point, I had gotten a little bit fed up with like the local con scene, because it was just very odd that like the Midwest con scene, for whatever reason, just was like, there was a lot of like internal drama over like nothing. And again, I'm not saying any names. I don't even remember the people at this point, honestly. But it was just so weird, and everybody was like trying to like make it big and be like a famous cosplayer, but like with no, like nobody had any like actionable, like I actually am trying to do something. They just wanted to be like the biggest fish in a very small pond.
Right.
And I was like, all right, cool. Like, whatever, fine. Like, again, and I was the person who had helped like run this convention. So I was just kind of getting all like the convention gossip. And again, luckily all my friends were really chill about it. And we never had like any internal friend stuff. It was
it's just not what you're into.
It was just hearsay
that kind of thing.
stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, like this person cosplayed this thing that this other person was making secretly, but found out. So they made it before they could. I'm like, what are we talking about? We are playing dress up. And what are we doing? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So I went to this thing and everyone was super cool. We were just all here for this like nerdy card game that like I'd gotten way back into Magic when I came back from college because one of my best friends was still in Milwaukee and we were kind of the only two people who were kind of there. And so we just like played a bunch of Magic and did a bunch of F&Ms and like, we did a bunch of F&Ms and like two-headed giant events at like our LGS. It was really fun. So we just got into it. And so we went together with all these other Magic people and it was just really fun. Like it was just, we got to go to Vegas. And at that point I'd never been to Vegas before. And just the whole Magic community was like pretty chill about it, about the whole cosplay thing. And it was just really nice. So like, I was like, oh, hey, that was really cool. I would like to do more of this because at that point I think I had 2 Magic cosplays and then I was like, I could make more. I like Magic cosplays. There's really cool art for this. Like that's a cool thing. And so I met Olivia there at 2017. It was the
This is Olivia Gobert-Hicks.
Olivia Gobert-Hicks, the very same. We were there was a big like all cosplayer get together and I was dressed as Innistrad Jace. And she was Liliana, and she just, again, in grand Olivia fashion, she just, like, walked right up to me and, like, put her elbow over me. She's like, I don't know where to stand, but you're Jace and I'm Liliana, so we're best friends now. And I'm like, okay, like, all right. And then turns out we were. It was fated, because we're still best friends now. And then when we went to the next big Magic Fest, which was the next year in Seattle, Olivia was like, let's get a room. Let's room together. I don't have anybody else to room with. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And then the friendship was forged in stone at that point. That was also the same. That was the same year that I filmed the first video with Brian, with the professor, because he had followed me he'd followed me back on Twitter at one point, and don't ever tell him this because he'll like just like lord it over me. But I like lost my mind when the professor followed me back on Twitter. Like I absolutely like I was at my old job. I was like trying to do professional science. And I was just like. They don't even know. Like, all these people keep coming in my lab, and they don't even know that the professor followed me back on Twitter. Oh my God! And then he like messaged me and messaged that he was like, "Hey, so I saw you had like this Jhoira costume. Do you want to film a video?" And then of course I was also like literally flying, like just absolutely losing my mind.
Just jumped up wherever you were, right?
Super excited, and then I filmed the video with the professor, and then he was like, "Hey, like." That was a really good video and you're really kind of very fun. Like, do you want to go to dinner with me? And I think it was like me and Cube April because she's been one of his friends forever. So we just went and just kind of had a lot of fun. And I was just like, this community is just really cool. Just very, like, I just kind of met all the right, I don't know how to say it. I just think I got really lucky at the right time. And I just kind of knew the right people and we were all kind of working on the same vibe and it just kind of worked. And it was not only that we were kind of making all the same content that we wanted to make, but we were also just the same, like we just, like we're the kind of people who are like, let's go out and get yummy food and hang out. And it was just really lovely. Honestly, I don't know how else to describe it. It was so much more of a, of like an insular kind of community in a good way, not insular in like gatekeepy way, but insular in like
not exclusionary, but just very close-knit.
It was insular in a kind of way that like, you film a video with somebody and then he's like, hey, do you and Olivia and your friend who's like, who are all staying in that room, do you want to come out to dinner with like me and April as the professor is just like being like, yeah, sure. Like, I don't think I've ever been to Seattle at that point even. So it was just lovely. And then like later that same weekend, we met Nadine, we met Nissa Cosplay, just a ton of other people, and just everyone was just lovely in just a very like genuine way, and the community seemed really cool. And I did honestly just love Magic because we had really just kind of fallen headfirst back into it right around the time that Mirrodin happened. So we were like, just yeah, and then we just kind of all happened, and then from there we kept doing these Magic things, and then we just kept kind of connections make connections, and suddenly you're on game nights, and I don't know, like it just kind of happens, and it was really nice. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of like I don't know.
Yeah, no, good things have a way of happening to good people, right? Yeah. What was that experience like working with Brian? Like, what was the behind the scenes like? Because I just told you I'm very into the behind the scenes. Like, what was it like working on that Office Hours video?
So,
because I'm watching it now, like I watched it at the time and I watched it again recently doing research for this. And, research in capital R. Like, how did you guys come up with the script? Was it like mostly improvised, or tell me the story behind like all that,
So, the way that it was kind of, so we were filming on site at the Magic event in Seattle. So it wasn't like obviously, I mean, I've since filmed with Brian now that he has his like designated studio, which is phenomenal. A studio, yeah. It's so cool. The studio is so cool. Don't tell him I said that. It'll go to his head.
Okay, I won't. I'll keep it. Hush, hush.
Like, listen to all of this, and they'll be like, "I heard all the good things you said about me," and I'll be like, "Yeah, I hate you, whatever." But so we were filming on just like we were in like not a closet, but we were in like a random. I mean, it was probably the size of my office. It was not a large room, and it was us, and then one of the Channel Fireball like AV guys, James, who is lovely, by the way, was lovely then, still is lovely now. Absolutely love James. And so Prof had the script already written. He had assistance from, I don't want to say the wrong person, but one of the people who was on either at the time they were, and they are definitely now on set, like on WotC staff, and they like help with the like story and stuff. So it could be, I don't remember. It says the credit in the video, and I don't want to misspeak.
Okay. It's Jay and Nelly, right?
It's Jay and Nelly. Okay, yes, okay. I was like,
because that's my recent research has given me that insight. Yes.
I was like, it could be one of like 3 people. But yeah, Jay and Nelly.
Right, because he has a stable of writers. Yep. Yeah, I know.
And Jay and Nelly got consulted on all the weird batshit old Magic lore, which is phenomenal because I love the old Magic lore.
Right.
And it was just.
Although I don't think Gundams were in the lore, but let's.
There were mech suits.
I mean, there were mecha suits. I even remember like some of the artwork. Like
there were Gundams, but like, what is a mech suit if it's not a little bit of a Gundam?
Right. Right. That was genius, by the way. Yeah. I guess that's attributed to his writing. It sounds like.
Yeah. So a lot of it was like the writing itself, and then some of it was just, you do a few takes, and then Prof is like, "Oh, what did you just do there?" And I was like, "Sup." And he's like, that, whatever that was, do that again. Like, that was perfect. I was like, okay, that wasn't the line, but I just did it. Okay, cool. And then we, like, there was a few things that we changed. Like, we brainstormed, like, some of the silly, like, bits. Obviously, like, I made my Time Water canister in my hotel room out of, like, scraps. Because he's like, do you have a canteen? Do you have a flask? I was like, no, like I didn't bring it. But luckily, between me and Olivia and
that's the cosplayer mindset. You gotta improvise.
The people that we roomed with, we were like, I have some extra fabric scraps and some ribbon. We can throw some stuff on there.
No problem.
Yeah, and it's really nice. Like the way he films is you kind of just like you don't have to memorize the whole script. He just like you just do the lines in one way or another. Because I was like old school, like high school theater kid, like I have to memorize all of this, and I'm like reading it on the plane, like on the way there, like I can do this probably. And I showed up there with like half of it memorized, and I was like, screw this up. And he's like, oh, you have it memorized already? Great. And I was like, only half, really? Okay. But yeah, it's always really fun. Every filming experience I have with Prof is great. Like, I mean. Again, like, he's gonna listen to this now, so I guess I'm deep in it. But it is just, like, going to hang out with your friend for a while. Not that first one. That first one, I was really like, I was convinced that I had to do a really good job because this guy was like really famous and like knew what he was doing or whatever. And now I just know that he's like my friend who's kind of an asshole and I love him. But so every time now we hang out and we just film and we just shoot shit and give each other hell back and forth as we film, and it's just always a good time.
Is there something that you might say about Tolarian Community College, like just the behind the scenes production that you think is underrated and that people may not know about? Like maybe the direction or the editing or some aspect of the inside baseball thing?
I think just that like he really does like take all of the stress off of you. Like he makes it seem like it's really easy for you.
He makes the guests feel comfortable,
yes,
right?
He makes the guests feel comfortable and like whatever you're doing, he'll get you where you need to be. And obviously, like it's not to say that he won't give you direction, because he absolutely will. Like for example, like
so he's a good director, basically.
He's very good. I don't think he'd ever say that about himself, but he absolutely is. Not only is he a good director because he'll give you the like direction that you need, but it's just good vibes when you go there. Like he just treats you very well. Like every time I go out there, he feeds you so well. Like you wake up every day and he's like gotten like the best donuts in Portland for you. And I know this isn't just me. This is not just me. This is not just me with French privileges. This is I think most of the people who get brought out there. And it's just it's kind of like a whole little mini like work vacation. And it's lovely. I don't think he does like deeply care. He wants to make the best possible end product. And it's very obvious. It's very obvious in that, like, in a way that it's not stressful for the person who's there. Like, he, for better or for worse, he internalizes all the stress onto himself, which is not good, Brian, if you're listening to this. You should be better to yourself, be kinder. But, I mean, he has a whole team now to help him, which is really good, as somebody who is his friend and wants the best for him, too. But, it's really cool. It's a phenomenal, like, not only is just the being in the studio is just very cool, very neat. It's an experience. But he does just have this way of making the guest feel very comfortable and very at ease so that he can get out of you the best that you can do. And
maximize your potential or abilities, right? Or
talents. Make you feel like you're being squeezed for it, right? Like it will happen naturally.
Right. And then, I think that happens if you feel relaxed, you feel at ease, and
And I think part of the relaxation that you get is you know that like whatever you're putting into this, like the amount of like post processing of this video, like you're never gonna look bad. Like it will be cut and it will be edited in a way that like you will always look good, which is so like great to know as somebody who's on camera, right? Like it's so nice to know that like whatever I give you, you're not gonna make it look like shit.
He's gonna use the best take, whatever that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I think that is something that really shows, even for someone like me who's just watching the videos, like everybody, even the recent series that he's done, I know you're in one of them, Shuffle Up and Play, right?
Shuffle and Play is so much fun.
You guys just look so relaxed and just having fun. Like, you can't really do that if there's a taskmaster, like, cracking the whip at you. Like, oh, you got to finish filming, in the next 10 minutes. Like, come on, let's go. We're running out of time, or you don't get fed, or, like, or if you slept badly, even, like... I do wonder if there's a phenomenon where like people actually gain weight after they go to film with TCC. Yeah. So I think that is something that really shows, is just that he really cares. And I feel like also, I'm sorry if he's hearing this because I'm also gushing a little bit. It's like he really cares about the craft.
Yeah, he's bright red somewhere. Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like you can also see the evolution. Like, like a few years ago it was Office Hours, but he's also kind of trying to figure out what does the audience want. And I think that's something that as content creators we all need to learn from, which is like the Shuffle Up and Play series didn't just come out of thin air. Like, that was done because he sort of felt the pulse of the community, and that's where Magic content needed to go for him. And so I never had the chance to say this to him in person, but it's just because I really care about how things are made. So it's like I can see that, and I think the average person may not. So I'm just trying to call that out.
The Shuffle Up and Play series is really, really well done. The other thing that I've always like, I mean, I didn't immediately know with Brian, but that became vastly apparent to me once I started working with him, and kind of, he's got a real eye for talent that like hasn't necessarily been recognized for like other larger platforms. Like, yeah, like the first thing I was ever on, like, this is again me giving myself a rare compliment here, but like the first thing I was ever on was his show. Like,
right.
He was just like, he's like,
and
oh,
he trusted you to give you a shot because he knew there was something about you that could work, right?
Yeah, and similarly for like Christine and Olivia, and not just cosplayers, but I mean, he had Kess on, he had Carmen on, and not to say that he's the only person responsible for anyone's success, but he does certainly seem to have a track record of like just being a little bit ahead of the game on
he's good at picking the talent, that's for sure. I full-heartedly agree.
Absolutely. I think he's also just really good at finding people who like play Magic but aren't necessarily like already in the community. Like one of the episodes of Shuffle Up and Play that I'm pretty sure is already out now. I think I can talk about this.
Spoiler alert.
It's definitely out. I remember the YouTube comments. But he got Chef PK on, who is a like content creator who does just the most beautiful food that you've ever looked at, and it tastes just as good too. Like, and he like had really never done Magic content before. He has a whole YouTube channel about like replicating like anime food and stuff. But he had this like great stage presence, and he loves Commander. So he was on in one of our Commander games, and I mean, the guy is like one of my favorite people to talk to on the internet now. Like, that game was so fun, and I don't know if he ever would have gotten on a Magic kind of named thing without Prof stepping in and kind of inviting him up, which was phenomenal. So.
For sure. The collabs thing is like absolutely huge, and I think it's a really underexplored part of MTG content in general. Is just like, there's a lot I can say about that, but let me move on. I need to ask you, like, so you do the thing with Prof initially, and then how did you go from that to, I don't actually know if there's causality, but how did you go from that into what you're doing now, which is more like
a little bit of causality. Yeah, I went from like 1,000 followers in 2018 to like 21,000, which is what I have now. It's a mistake. Twitter's a mistake. I mean, I'm not really sure, to be completely honest. Like, and I always feel bad because I know that people who listen to these sometimes take that as like, they take my personal story as a recipe for like how to make it in a community, which I'm always like a little bit leery of.
No, let's caveat this. Everyone has their own unique journey, right?
And I know that's not what you're saying. But it's also too, like, again, and the worst part about that is too, like, the way that I made it from 2018 to now is now, like, because of the way that social media landscape moves so quickly, it's now drastically different, right? Like, it's not
right.
That path has been taken. It's almost not a thing anymore. So I basically just kind of was like, okay, this is a thing. I really like it. I opened the Patreon in around like 2018, 2019 maybe, just because I was like, I was like, I don't know, like, people want stuff, so I was like, okay, I'll make it, thinking that I was gonna get like, you know, $15 or whatever, and I got more than that, which was lovely. And I just kind of use my Patreon right now as like I give things away that I like can't really, or like if I do like, I do some of the playmat drawings for like Ultra Pro and stuff, so that's a great way to give stuff away. And it's
because let's face it, you probably have more playmats than you ever need in your life. I mean, I could say that for myself, let alone for someone who is sponsored. So
I have so many more playmats, and I love to give them away too, which is the best part. So
right, the best part is giving. Yeah,
it was a good way to like just kind of give things away, and also like I kind of like doing a little bit of blogging, and like it was a good way to like show off like, here's my pictures that are like too, like, here's my, like, you know, progress pictures that are like too gross for Twitter, like, because it's, you know, if you're like, this is the weird like bone helmet that
it's for nerds like me who like the behind the scenes stuff.
It's like that's too much to kind of like codify in like context for Twitter. So I did that, and then I did start streaming, but when I used to have a condo, now I have a house, great. When I had my condo, my like internet just like hated my condo, and I am like I'm like a hard science person. Like, if you give me like vials of chemicals and a fire, I can make them go. If you give me ones and zeros, I will look at you like a sad puppy. I don't know what to do with those.
Right. Right.
So I like never quite had the optimal like stream setup. And it was really hard because it was kind of like, oh, sometimes I can stream and sometimes I can't. So it was always kind of questionable. And then obviously like pandemic hits, everything just kind of shuts down, and we're all sitting at home and we all start playing Webcam Commander. And I finally got my internet working a little bit better. Luckily I had a friend who could come over and like, we could like, I mean, at that point we didn't really know what was safe and what wasn't, but, we were pretty much living alone. I just had somebody come over and actually like help me set all my stuff up. I moved my desktop. I hardlined myself in, and I started finally streaming. I was doing a bunch of the, like early access events when they happened. I remember doing early access, Ikoria, when I thought that Ikoria was the worst limited set I had ever played. And I hated Mutate. It was the worst mechanic that I had ever seen. Fast forward to now, and I have like 6 boxes of Ikoria cached in my basement right now.
Things have changed, huh?
Boxes of Ikoria, because one day I will draft them all with my friends. I don't know when that's going to be, but hopefully someday. I love Ikoria. And yeah, so then things just kind of, it is one of those things that once you get like that initial kind of foot in the door and you kind of have the initial community, I don't know exactly what you do to build on that, but I did it right enough, I suppose. I got to do a few really cool projects with WotC. I mean, before the pandemic, I got to go to PAX and help preview the Guilds of Ravnica set. So this is 2019, so sorry, we're going backwards a little bit. And that was when they commissioned me to make Ral Zarek. So I did that, and I was a little bit confused. I was like, really? You want me to be okay? Like, I can do it, I guess. But like, all right, let's go.
So it was their idea. It was
actually WotC's idea to do it.
That's very interesting.
I mean, it was like I was a little bit worried that they were going to ask me to be Vraska, because I had seen that like Vraska that like Magali Villeneuve had done for Guild of Ravnica. And I'm like, I cannot make that in the amount of time that I have. And they were like, oh, we really want you to be Ral. And I'm like,
what was that conversation like? Like, did you ask them why they wanted you to be that?
I didn't, to be completely honest, I was kind of just like really happy that I dodged the Vraska bullet, and I was like, I can make Ral.
Just happy to have the gig, and
at that time, I was dating somebody who was also like very, very talented at costumes, and I knew that like I could have her help me, and I want to make sure. I was like, well, if girlfriend helps me, I want to make sure that she gets there, and she got a badge to go and like wander around at like PAX with like a special like behind the scenes pass. So that was pretty good. So we went. It was really good, and I was Ral, and it was kind of hilarious because I was like in this like dude face, and then people were like coming up to me and be like, "Oh, it's Ral Zarek," and then I would like talk and be like, "Yeah, hi, I'm Ral Zarek," and they'd be like, what's happening?" And again, because I wasn't sure.
Look of confusion.
Yeah, like I don't know, it was.
Do you have any theories about that? Like, was it like they felt like this was a underexposed planeswalker or something, and they needed to like, hey, let's give them more exposure.
And also, they knew I had done Jace at that point too. So like, I don't think it was WotC like being like, let's ask this woman to like turn herself into a man. Like they had known, and I had done like the makeup where I had like kind of shaded myself and given myself like, like the 5 o'clock shadows. Jace and Ral is just a little bit more. And again, it looks really good in pictures. And then
it does.
And then I talk, and it doesn't quite as well. Which again just makes you like it just makes you realize like how much like gender fluid and transgender people like are amazing in what they do to affirm their own genders, whereas I was like, I don't care what you call me, but here I am. But it's really fun though. Like that's another thing about cosplay that's really fun is like I would encourage anybody to just be like, I like this character and I want to be them regardless of what gender is, and you should just do it. Like whether you do the full makeup or not, like you should just do it. Who cares? Like gender's just fake on paper, and you should just be whoever you want.
I hear that.
So like that was really fun, and like getting to go to PAX and getting to go to the official thing and like work in the PAX booth for WotC was really cool. And then everything. Oh, and I guess right before everything shut down, I was on game nights. I was on game nights in January of 2020. So it was like,
Tell me what it was like to get the call from Game Nights and go through that.
It was an email, but it was still like I had to like pull my car to traffic, like so that I like saw the email flash up and like didn't want to look at it, but
yeah,
it was very cool. Obviously, like Josh, Jimmy, that entire team, which was albeit like smaller when I was there, but like that whole team, like just consummate professionals. Like I can't say like a single bad thing about it. It was like a singular experience. It was incredibly cool. I'm really glad that I got to be there for the unstable event. So we were playing like crazy uncards. Olivia and I got to do that whole like arm wrestle thing.
Arm wrestle, yeah.
I
did my research.
Yeah, so that was hilarious and it was a perfect example of like that wasn't planned. Like people were like
that was definitely not scripted.
People
I
were
could
like,
tell.
Game Night just scripted. It's like, no, it is not. Like we just played those cards, and then Olivia played the arm wrestling card, and Josh and Jimmy got this like little flicker in their eye, and they were like, we could do a whole thing about this, and we just like did, and it was great. Like, and that's kind of creative filmmaking in real life. Like it just all happened, and then we were all just like, "Are you? Yeah, let's all do this." And it was great, and it was hilarious. And obviously, it wasn't. Some people were like, "Just play the cards" or whatever, but like that's YouTube comments. Who cares? But it was still fun.
Yeah.
And like again, they were like just everything about it. Like it was lovely to see Ashlyn. We recorded the episode of Command
Did the
Zone
podcast together
while we were up there.
Yeah.
And it was just. God, it's been so cool too because I've gotten the chance to obviously see what they've done since 2020, right? Like now that the
some incredible stuff.
Now that the studio has opened up and they've hired so many more people, they keep hiring like the most talented people possible, right?
Right.
And just like the stuff they're doing is just incredible, and it's really cool to see like the next thing that they're gonna do. Like it's always interesting to see kind of like to me it's almost
that's just. Excuse my French. That's just so like effing incredible.
It really is. It really is.
You've done two of the things that I think for most Magic creators, it's like the two bucket list items are like appear on Game Nights and appear on Tolarian Community College. Like you've done them both, and actually you've done TCC multiple times. Yeah. So it's like you're basically a mainstay. So like, that's just incredible.
I like to think of myself as a recurring villain on Tolarian Community College.
Villain or heel, somebody like that. Yeah.
I mean, like if Brian knew what a heel was, then yeah, he doesn't watch wrestling though.
Yeah, it might not be in his scope of references.
Perhaps
so,
not.
Yeah, yeah. So I am wondering though, because like I feel like there is something relatable here, which is like as a creator, you get your 15 minutes, and sometimes those 15 minutes come when you don't expect it. Mm-hmm. Like. There's moments of it could be like virality, it could be something you did that's good or bad, blows up. Like, is there something that as a creator, like you try to leverage in those moments? Like, for example, when you get the Game Nights and you have more people that know about who Tappy Toe Claws is. This is crazy. I'm talking about you in the third person, but like, it's like almost like you're an athlete or celebrity, but I digress. But like when there's those kind of like highlight points in your creator journey, is there something specifically that you try to do to grow or to leverage, or is it just like it just comes?
I think I mean obviously I guess like in the back of my like psychological reptile brain there maybe is something that I do, but I think when you get that influx of eyes on you, I think the best thing you can do is just like be the most genuine version of yourself, like whether that is good or bad. Again, because I'm kind of a hot mess. Like obviously on Game Nights it didn't happen because of the way that Game Nights is made, but the way that Shuffle Up and Play is purposely made. Like, I mean, I am playing like the messiest bitch on Shuffle Up and Play, and so people who are coming to my Twitter or my Instagram or my TikTok or like whatever, my Twitch or whatever, like you just kind of own it, right? Like I think it's kind of important to just be like, because you don't want to try to sell people who are coming to your content on
incongruent version of yourself, like, or inconsistent
on the inconsistent version, like on the untrue version of yourself, because I'm just gonna leave them like
inauthentic maybe.
Yeah, inauthentic is absolutely the word I was looking for. pardon my sudden onset aphasia. But yeah, like you don't want to sell them on the inauthentic version of yourself. Like one, if they came to your stuff from your video or your article or whatever have you that they saw you on, they're coming for what they saw of you that they liked. And then either what they saw of you was like not truly you, in which case like then why would you really want them there? Or like what they saw of you is what they liked. So then you just kind of like lean into it. Like, yes, I play messy storm decks and I don't know all of my combos because I like to say that I build Ferraris and I pilot them like a drunk 12-year-old. And that's just kind of it. Like, I think just like kind of living, just being like, hey, here's what I am. And you don't obviously have to bear like all of your messy truths, but I feel like being at least authentic to yourself and being authentic to, I think also like it's also kind of being authentic to your values. Like every time that I'm on a new show or whatever, I get new followers, and then some horrible thing happens in the American political system and I'm suddenly tweeting about politics and people are like, I didn't follow you for politics. And I'm like, cool, then bye. Like, trans rights are human rights, and I think women should have right to their health care. Bye. Don't let the door hit you on like whatever on your way out, right? Like right. I'm not gonna change who I am fundamentally because I want like 10 more followers. Are you kidding me? Like that's just what a like yeah. And unfortunately, like, I think there are some people who think that they have to sanitize themselves to like make it and to like get popular, but like the people who find you for who you are the people that will stay, and those are the people who are like worth keeping around, right?
I think the authenticity is really hard though, because there is maybe this is my bias, right? I do feel like in the Magic, of course, like community can be defined different ways, because like communities are also different on different platforms. Like Magic subreddit is pretty toxic, and then Magic Twitter is probably a little bit better, and then maybe like Magic on Facebook is also a different beast, right? So it's hard. It's always hard to generalize, but I also feel like there is a kind of almost like approved position in Magic. Like sure. Like let's just like I think Magic, the online community is generally more like left leaning. So I'm also wondering, like, is it hard to like not have certain, or to have like, have you had positions that are like not popular, and have you thought about like expressing yourself or not expressing yourself because of the potential blowback?
Sure.
Like I'm sure that comes into effect every time, no matter how small or big you are as a creator, when you do something publicly.
I think part of it depends on like what platform you're on too, and like obviously like there are absolutely parts of Magic Twitter that I'm sure they hate me because I'm like a gay woman who screams about trans rights and abortions. So like I'm sure Reddit doesn't like me. I have a friend who checks every once in a while about what they're talking about me on Reddit, and she doesn't tell me about it. She just makes sure that it's not bad enough, like whatever. So I think there's a little bit of that, is like the parts of the community that I want to be a part of are the parts that I'm a part of. I know there are people who have just really noxious fucking like Twitch streams, like Twitch chats. I don't have one. I don't know why that is. I just don't. If somebody comes in and they're shitty, my mods ban them. I remember when I was doing, there was a period of time during the full lockdown when all of the Magic events like that were on the docket still with Channel Fireball went virtual, and Channel Fireball had them on Twitch, and they had hired content creators in to like come and like talk basically and do the commentating. And I was with William Huey Jensen, and that poor man did not know what happened to him. He did then like ask to get put back with me on there, and I think that was my first exposure to like a more like just a larger stream, just a stream that you can't moderate. Because I have no like delusion about like my level on Twitch. I get between like 80 and 30 Twitch viewers like per stream, whatever. It's very, very respectable, but like it's fine. Whereas with the Channel Fireball one, it's several hundred or 1,000 or whatever. And every once in a while, there'd be somebody who'd be like, this girl doesn't know anything about magic, blah, 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 or whatever. And, like, the mods would be trying to ban them. And I'd be like, no, let them tell them that to my, like, bring that to my face. Like, what are they talking about? Like, and they'd be like, well, she needs to talk about magic more. And instead, she's talking to Huey Jensen about lactobacillus acidophilus and some kind of weird microbiology thing. And I'm like, it's the third freaking Fires match. It's the third Fires, like, mirror match that you've seen in 2 hours.
Right.
You, single person in chat, who I'm now calling out because, and the channel fireball people are like, please, Tappy, do not fight with chat. And I'll say, I'll fight with chat. I'll do it. I'm not afraid. I will do it all day. I'm bigger than them, and I can yell. They cannot because they're in chat. And they're like Tappy,
right.
But Tappy don't.
I have the megaphone. They do not.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And I was like, I don't know. So I don't know if it's like just a little bit that I like don't care. And again, for very, very earlier context, again, I was like a weeb in 2004. Like, I cut my teeth on like original 4chan.
Right.
I am not scared.
You were an OG. Yeah.
I played. Yeah, like I was in like I was in like the original StarCraft like 4chan threads. Like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like they weren't good. Like they weren't good then, but they certainly
probably the boisiest of the boys clubs. Yeah, there could be one. Right?
They might. Oh yeah. Again, like for better or for worse, I was one of those. Like I'm not like other girls for a while, so whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think it does kind of. Obviously, there are opinions that like. I think the difference between me to kind of like actually cycle back to your original point. I think the difference between me like throwing up an opinion that I know is like incorrect, like not incorrect, or like that is a little bit abrasive on Twitter. It's like, is this opinion going to like actually advance the cause that I think it should? Or is it just me being abrasive? Like, is it serving a larger purpose? Like, is it going to make someone else like feel better about themselves? Like me yelling about how like J.K. Rowling is bad. She is not a person that anybody needs to support anymore. Like maybe we just turn it off, which even among some left people, unfortunately, is not necessarily like, it's not a black and white issue, whatever. I don't know. I'm very open. But like, whereas I like, is that an opinion that everybody thinks is objectively correct? Probably no, but like, I don't know, there's maybe some like baby trans girl who like sees that and then thinks that like, I don't know, she saw my stream and thought I was cool, and now she sees that I like think that J.K. Rowling is horrible because J.K. Rowling is saying unobjectionably horrible shit about this community that like she is about, and that's good. Then that's worth it. That's worth some like assholes in my mentions who are gonna yell about stuff or whatever. But like, do I need to say like every hot take about Commander that I have publicly? Probably not. Like, I mean, maybe sometimes it's fun to post them just because it gets a rile out of people and it's like harmless for the most part. But
yeah,
I don't know. Like, I have no issue about like talking about politics every once in a while, because unfortunately politics are a thing that happen to everybody, and it is a increasingly kind of endemic issue to what's happening right now. And I think people like, I don't know.
I mean, it's life, right? And I think it's true. Like I hear this sometimes, and I do believe it's true, which is like being apolitical is a political stance, right? Like you can't really like no man or woman is an island. I think that's something that I feel pretty strongly about.
And anybody who purports to be apolitical like is already speaking from the place of privilege of having the ability to be apolitical. Like obviously, again, like I'm very like I'm cis passing, I'm straight passing, I'm like a skinny white girl who owns a house. Like I'm pretty okay, but even like my existence is politicized. So like I can't possibly imagine what it must feel like as somebody to be like black or like visibly trans, or somebody who's like constant existence and their identity is always under question. So like if the worst thing that you see like or like if something that you see like your random fucking Magic the Gathering content creator who is funny as drunk Jhoira is like yelling about trans rights and that like makes you feel a little bit better, God, I hope so. Like that's the frickin' least I can do. Obviously, like I, would hope I could do more than that. But like if that's the least I can do, what am I gonna do? Lose a few 5 followers who are just like dudes who like were like, oh, this girl plays Magic. I'm sure she's like hot or whatever. And then I say something about I think that trans women should be able to use whatever bathroom they want because that's actually just the best thing. And then they're like, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, bye. Like. I don't really see how that serves anybody to just kind of like keep quiet about that. And again, like
yeah,
I don't have that much of a platform, but I feel like at a certain, like after a certain point, like I have a platform the size that I do. I would feel bad if I like didn't say something about like very major issues, at least.
Right. Do you feel is it more like do you feel pressure to say things about certain issues or?
Less
is there a nudge?
I don't. I mean, maybe there's a nudge, but I think if there's a nudge, it's because I have a community that I've built up on like the assumption that I am like supportive or like it's a community that I have that I feel like I should support. And it's a community that for whatever reason I have built it up for something that I did. And so if I feel pressure from the community that I built up, that's still like, I was still somehow the inciting.
Kind of justified in a way, right?
The inciting force about this. Like, it's a community that supports me. So why would I not support this community that I have now built? Right? Like, I feel like
it's reciprocal. That's what you're saying.
I'm responsible for them. Likewise, if I had a community that was like, suddenly, if my Twitch chat suddenly rated somebody else and they were fucking horrible to that person, I would feel responsible for that too. Like I would feel responsible to say something or try to correct. Because again, like obviously I didn't say any of those bad things that my Twitch chat did, but at the same time, all of these people were following me and they somehow coalesced around me as a personality, and then I sent them somewhere and they did horrible things. Like that's there's a common denominator somewhere.
Sure. Do you think there's a good way to cultivate one's fan base so that they try to be on the side of mostly lawful good and not evil?
I'd say that I'm a little more chaotic good than lawful good, but
sure, yeah, that's probably a bad analogy, but like just like more well behaved, or like, is there something that a creator can do?
I don't think it's like beyond a content creator's like scope of things in any community. Again, like we play a children's card game. Like it's not that complicated, but at the same time, I do think that's kind of a little bit about the like, do I need to say something kind of situation? Like, do I need to yell that like trans women are women, or that like, hey, here's some of the actual scientific data on abortion and what that situation actually looks like? Like, do I need to? No. But at the same time, I think I have enough eyes on me, and I have enough people who are, for better or worse, like impressionable to what I think and who see me as someone of esteem that they'll listen to. So yeah, I absolutely think that it's not unreasonable to say that. Like, obviously, I maybe wouldn't go so far as to like, I have absolutely motivated my Twitch communities and my Twitter communities to like get involved in their local politics and make sure that like they're, the person that they're potentially voting for school board is somebody that they want on there. I wouldn't necessarily like be like, hey, like this is the person, but obviously, I mean, my politics, I'm not quiet about the fact that my politics skew like very left. But I would never tell somebody exactly how they need to vote or something like that. But I think it's reasonable to be like, hey, especially as a scientist too, like, hey, here's the data, like, here's the facts about this thing. And if you want information on how to find the facts, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
But
so here's something that, and please let me know if this is going like way too deep into something, but I find that to be very challenging for myself personally, because I think it's kind of like Dunning-Kruger. Like in the beginning, when you start exploring things, you feel like things are very simple and clear cut. And then the more you get into something, like for example, for me in like investing, it's like the more I realize, oh shit, I don't know anything. Like I should get out while I still can, because like the deeper you get, the more you realize you don't know shit. At least for me, I can't speak for other people, but I have this like conflict when it comes to internet discourse, which is basically like, I don't know now, being like 40 years old and having gone through years of, pre-internet and then internet and then trying to argue and convince people on the internet. I don't know if like any of my yelling actually works, because I don't actually know how you can actually change someone's mind on the internet, because just by virtue of it being a public space, people don't want to feel shamed or feel ashamed of a position. Yeah. So I do wonder like whether we're all just fucked, like trying to like, or whether we're all just like echo chambering our own, like existential question, right? But I sometimes I wonder about that, because even me having like, I don't know, 1% of the platform that you have, I feel some similar things. It's like, okay, do I have a responsibility? Every once in a while, someone will go into my DMs and be like, you should talk about this, you should talk about that. And I'm just like, it's about empathy, right? So if I'm experiencing it, I can imagine that you're experiencing like 100 times what I'm experiencing on the regular, much more public than I am, because I'm hiding behind this microphone. And
you do a good job.
And thank you. But I do wonder sometimes, like, does any of it matter? Like, maybe this is just like super nihilist thinking, but like there is a kind of conflict I have, which is like, maybe sometimes by saying something bad about something, I'm actually amplifying that thing. For example, if I'm not on the J.K. Rowling pro camp, but like maybe by saying something bad about her, I'm actually like amplifying her. Because the theory, it's like you actually, the haters actually like promote the thing. So this is a very long-winded way for me to say, like, I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't know if we're all just fucked. And like maybe I just shouldn't say anything, because like maybe it's like circular, and then by saying something I'm actually making it worse, even if I think I'm trying to convince somebody or think I make a difference. So I'm wondering if like you've ever had these like weird thought patterns, or if it's just me.
Sure. Well, okay, there's a lot of questions in there. I think I'm
sorry, there's not even, I'm just rambling now.
That's
so
okay. It's all really good. I think first of all, the idea that you have about like 6 different directions in your head at any given time is very relatable, and that is all of me all the time.
Relatable content right there, yeah.
Like I absolutely can see like, I could do this, or I could do this, or what if I like, how do I maybe write this tweet, or like how do I do this thing? And like I write a lot of tweets and delete a lot of tweets. So I think the idea that you have this kind of analysis paralysis of like the amount of options that you can like, you have that kind of like geometry meme where you're just like, I think that's really relatable, and I don't think anybody should take that away. Like me saying that I do all these things does not necessarily negate the fact that I have all of that like also happening. Part of the reason why I'm able to function as a creature or a content creator at all is I have a very, very secure set of in-person, in-flesh space friends that are lovely and extremely supportive. And if I'm ever like, hey, I think I should maybe like send this tweet, they'll just be like, don't, or like sit on it for like 12 hours or something like that. I also have like, I have people like Olivia, and I have like people on the internet too that I can be like, what do you think of this take? And they'll just be like, reword it this way, or like do again, or sit on it for 12 hours, whatever. So I think first of all, it's very okay to be like, this is a brave new frontier. Everything is strange. Maybe we are all just fucked forever. I don't know. I think that's totally normal. Like a little bit of holy shit existential angst is just like, if you don't have that, like, are you paying attention? Like, I think it's okay to just say like, nobody has every answer, and everyone should be a little bit worried and a little bit anxious about things. I think that's just normal. I think that's just a thing that everybody just has. First of all, so I think that's just a normal thing, and part of that is I think having a dedicated community, and some of those people are like, I have carefully chosen and picked mods from like some of the original people that I had in my Twitch chat are now like mods, and we have a whole chat and we all just hang out, and I value their opinion like implicitly because they've seen me from when I had 200 Twitch followers to when I have what I have now, and they've seen when I had 1,000 Twitter followers to now that I have 20,000, right? Like they know, they've kind of seen the whole thing, and they're very like in the community, like they're community members in their own right, and they do their own things. So it's really nice to have like a group of people who are not necessarily even like a single Overton window of opinions either. Like we're all kind of around. Do we all kind of mostly align with our politics? Yes, otherwise it would be a little bit harder to work. But like we're a little bit less extreme or more extreme on certain issues. So it's really nice to have a group of people to kind of be like, hey, what's the temperature of like the J.K. Rowling thing? Like, do I need to say something? Like, again, like one of my moderators is like a baby trans lady, and it's lovely to have her opinion to be like, hey, like, do y'all need to like, would it be good to hear from me that I think she's a horrible, like, spiteful harpy? Like, what do you need to hear from me? Like, kind of thing. And obviously that can influence where I'm coming from. And I think the other thing that's really important too on one of the earlier subjects you were talking about when you were talking about like finance and stuff is like where do you start? Like you're like, yeah, I'm 40 and I have investments and I kind of know. I think as a science, I think this is where like the hard science background comes in. I think one of the best things that from like unfortunately like on a higher platform, like this is absolutely something that like somebody would take advantage of, like a leftist saying like, I don't know. But I think it's actually really, really good to hear from people that you respect to say, like, I don't know. Like, I think it's, like reasonably, like, I need to do more research. I think I need to wait for some more stuff to come out. Where I'm at right now, I do not know. I think that's actually, like, a thing that more people should say. Like, more people should admit to. And I think that's just something that's, like, hardwired into me as a scientist, is, like, I will be talking about things and somebody will, like, ask me, like, a follow-up question. I'll be like, I haven't done that much research on it. I will read. I can read some, and we can figure it out. But I do not have it like in my brain right now. And I think the idea that everybody should just like have like every social study and every like up to date idea of the best possible like political action is like unreasonable. Like I mean, nobody's like I play card games on the internet, and sometimes people ask me about politics or about science while I'm there, or they ask me about like people would ask me about like the vaccines, and I would like not want to tell them nothing, because if they're coming to me, at least I can give them more information than somebody else. Like I will be the first person to say like, yes, I have a degree in bio and chemistry, and I know what all these keywords are, and I know more than the average person. I am not your doctor, though. Like, here are some good... I think the best thing you can do is, like, be like, I don't know the answer to that. These are the best places that you can go to find the things. Like, here is the reference for, like, the World Health Organization, if you want information on the mRNA vaccine or whatever. And I think just being able to be like, hey, like, I am still actively doing my research on this. I'm very interested in it, but, like, I am a person playing Magic the Gathering on Twitch. I'm happy to help you. This is what I think. I do not know that as a fact, though. And obviously, like, Twitter has its own issue because, like, that's a level of nuance that you can't really put into 280 characters. But, like, specifically on Twitch, because I get pretty, like, politically heated on Twitch sometimes. So that's always a thing that I'll always make sure to preface. And on Twitch, like, people are going to hear that. On Twitter, it's a little bit harder. So on Twitter, you have to make sure that you get, like, that little snappy, like, here's my unobjectionable 200 characters that I said about J.K. Rowling because she's wrong. Like, whatever. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at. I guess in like, follow-up is, I think that there is a very reasonable response of, like, I don't know what to do about this, and I don't think anybody was trained to be a social media influencer, especially at our age. Like, right? Nobody told us this was a job that, like, existed and people were going to listen to you. I think the best thing that you can do is, like, the best you can. and admit to your faults when you have them. Obviously, I have plenty myself. I'm sure we all do.
Yeah.
And I guess the way that I fall is like, maybe I'm not doing the most good of any, like, you know, random streamer who's doing things. Again, I'm playing card games. I'm not here to like preach politics to people. I just sometimes will do it if people ask me to. But I guess I'd rather do something than like nothing, I guess. Like, I guess I'd rather be like a little bit of a loud, mouthy, like socialist and be wrong a little bit than like be like politically sanitized and like not do anything, I guess. And I don't know whether that's for the better or for the worse, but like that's kind of, I think that's the only thing that I could like go to sleep with myself for.
Yeah.
I don't think I could like be entirely quiet about it and like still be happy with like my online footprint.
I think this is something I do want to touch on, which is like, you're touching on something which is really fascinating to me, which is like authenticity and having a voice, right? Like, because the Tappy Toe Claws is you,
Yes.
but it is like it is a thing that you project publicly, and it's not even about responsibility to say something on a certain issue, but it's also like, for me, it's part of more about authenticity, like, because that's who you are. And so it's like the B word, that your brand is like, you want to say something because that's what you will say. Actually, that sounds really reductive, but you know, obvious or reductive. But I think there's also a part of it which is like, you said about like, you know, being, maybe my words, but like being at peace with yourself and being able to sleep because you feel like expressing that position is good for your own well-being. So I think there's also a kind of linkage to the sustainability of your craft,
for sure.
Like as a creator. It's like, because if you have to, everyone has their own limits or comfort levels, but it's like, if you don't feel comfortable being who you are as Tappy Toe Claws, then it's very hard to sustain that, right? Because then you probably don't want to keep doing that.
Yeah, like like it would be really hard to like make sure that, again, like I work a 9 to 5 every day, and then I come home and you know, I at least like, I usually am like filming a TikTok, or I'm making a new deck, and every week I stream, and I'm always working on something. So I think if I didn't think that like somebody was enjoying it, and somebody had a better day because they like saw whatever I did, whether it was like, hey, they saw like a stupid meme that I made making fun of me being like a drunk pirate as Jhoira, or it was like some, you know, like little baby trans girl who saw that I was like telling, like, well, not telling, but like saying that JK Rowling is bad. I don't know. I don't think it would last, actually, if it was just kind of a sanitized version of myself. Like, I definitely don't have that in me, is to turn on the camera and be like, hi, I'm Tappy Toe Claws, I'm a cosplayer, and today we're gonna cut a wig. Not to say that there aren't people who should make that content, because there are people who should.
Right.
I can't.
Yeah.
Like, there is an amount of like myself that I can kind of turn on for the camera, but I don't think I can ever turn off, like, you know, if suddenly the Supreme Court decides that I don't have rights, I'm going to yell about them a little bit, because otherwise I'm not going to stream it all. Like, otherwise it's not going to happen. So
I think this is the part of how you maintain your motivation as a creator, but are there other things that you might do to maintain motivation? Because this is even something I'm going through this year, which is like getting more serious about content, but then also feeling kind of like the inklings of feeling like I'm overdoing it or burning out at times. So how do you deal with that, or how do you motivate yourself?
Well, again, I do have like that very like critical core group of friends who, like, more than once they've been like, have you slept? Like, what's your situation right now? And they will just like absolutely tell me, like, how many times did you stream this week? 3? Yeah, okay, you're done. Like, you're stopped. Which is great. I think part of it that helps me is I also have like that key group of like moderators on the internet side. Like, the only reason my Wednesday stream gets up every week is because I know that if I tune in, I never even have to ask. And this is something that I know other content creators don't have. I'm so incredibly lucky, and I'm not just a white woman like pontificating upon like all of her blessings. I'm so lucky. I'm so privileged. I just have like friends who like it literally takes a village to get Tappy live every day.
Mhm.
Like half the time, like
It takes a team,
half
right?
the time
Yeah.
I have busted my microphone and it doesn't work, and I have to have somebody like come in on like the Discord call and like help me. So the fact that I have those people, and also too, my community is pretty, at least on Twitch, because Twitch is like probably like the most work, I guess, what I would say for like content is like my weekly Twitch stream is, there's a reason I stream like once a week, is like that's like the most work for me to get up live every month, every week. And obviously like it being sponsored helps, because now I have like I'm guaranteed like a certain amount of money for every time like the Twitch stream goes live, so that's really nice to know. But also I just have this like dedicated crew of mods who like I have, if nothing else, if I forget to schedule people for my stream, I have 3 people who will be happy to be on, and they're the same smiley faces that I have every time. I don't have to worry if like somebody's gonna bring a deck that's too powerful, or if somebody's like gonna be offended that we're not playing on like a high enough power level, or we're not playing like, you know, we're playing like sloppy magic and people are playing take back stats. This is like the same 3 people that we play with every time. So that really helps. And then as far as like cosplay and stuff, I think the thing that really helps me is the novelty. Is I can like pick whatever projects I kind of want. If I want to learn like a new skill, if I want to learn how to like dye fabric, or like I want to make this weird wig, I just can. Like that's the next project that I start, which is really fun because I'm very attracted to like new things that I can do. So,
Do you think the ADHD helps you or hinders you as a content creator?
Definitely. I mean, I think it helps in some ways. Definitely in like I always want a project to be doing is really nice. Cause like I literally finished a cosplay project. I made a Renaissance fair costume for like 2 weeks ago, and I'm already like, what can I make next? Alrighty. I need another project. Like let's do something. Cause then if I have, and then the other thing is that like deadlines are actually really good for me. Because if I know I have a hard deadline for something, I can like, that's how I can kind of plan around something. Whereas if I don't, it will just kind of sit.
Constraints can actually be kind of freeing in a way, right?
When I knew that I had, like, we were going to the Ren Fair 2 weeks ago Sunday. Like, we were going. So I made sure the costume was done. Like, it got done. I knew I... Like,
but you still had to do 5 costumes, right?
Well, yeah.
You did a speed run.
I did do, yeah. I mean, like, I made exactly what I could in that time, but it was nice. It was nice to know there was a deadline. In some ways, it's really nice because obviously, like, the energy really helps for stream. Like, people are always like, you're so talkative and you're so, like, bouncy and stuff. And that's all stuff that comes pretty naturally. But in some ways, like, streaming is really hard with the ADHD sometimes, is because normally when I'm like playing Magic on Arena, I am also watching Netflix and like checking Twitter on my phone and like looking at my like 401k and like my stocks on another screen. Like, so having just only Twitch up is kind of a lot for like the 3 hours that I have it up. Because very rarely is there a time when I don't have like at least like me doing something with my hands and then an entirely another like source of audio. Like I mainline like audiobooks, podcasts. There's actually a ton of YouTube videos that like a lot of universities just put up of like their 1 to 300 level classes, just like open source on like MIT.
Oh yeah, those are
MIT
great.
Just puts up a ton of their courseware, and I listen to like 3 of them a week.
A lot of it is just free and out there. I love that.
Great.
Yeah,
It's phenomenal. So yeah, like, so sitting down and playing just Magic and not having
Is
an
difficult.
MIT lecture or a book in my head is also like wild. So that's
so you need Twitch chat in your head or the mods in your head.
so I have, and again, that's the nice thing is that like the fact that I can always like that's like the fact that I can always play Magic with friends and have the friend chat and then also the chat and then also Magic playing is part of the reason why it gets done.
It's a bit like the chicken and the egg. Like, I feel like being a good multitasker, maybe not even ADHD, but just being a good multitasker helps you as a creator, right?
But at sometimes too, you also sometimes get the I've definitely had the problem where I feel like I should always be doing something that's like monetizable, which is very unhealthy. I know a lot of people like reach that point, but to the point that I'm like, if I'm like relaxing and like sitting on the couch, I'm like, oh, I could be sitting in my desk chair and like
I've talked about this with streamers, like in general. It's like they don't want to play. It's like I don't want to play a video game on my own anymore because I could stream it.
Yep. Or I'm like, well, if I'm playing this game, I should at least be watching like the new Game of Thrones that I can like talk about it or whatever. And again, like I like the new Game of Thrones.
Oh, I see.
But like part of
almost like building like social equity or something.
It's also just building like should I be talking about this or like should I be like, and again, like some of it is like watching my friends' content is almost never work, but like should I be like listening to like all like should I like be listening to the one of the set reviews for like the new Dominaria sets so that I like know all the cards that I can talk about it or something,
right? Which
again is mostly fun, but like it's a lot of that. It's sometimes poison when that gets into your brain when it's like this is fun, but this is fun and also value. Whereas it's like, no, the other thing is value too, because you enjoy it. Like you have to like remember that.
How do you draw boundaries for yourself then? In that case?
Not well. One of the best things to draw boundaries for me is my dog, honestly, because he gets out on 2 walks a day, and it's really nice to just like go out. And even if it's like he's a little dog, he's like 25 pounds, he's not big, he doesn't go very far. But it's really nice to like be like, hey, this little dude, like. He's like, you're his favorite person in the whole world. This like little idiot that lives in your house. And he needs you to take him out on a walk. So you need to do that right now. Otherwise he's going to pee on your carpet. So you have to do that. So it's really nice. Like I get 2 walks a day, which is really nice. It's not a lot of exercise, but you'd be surprised like how much like 2 walks a day does for like the average person, just in terms of like getting you out and making sure that you move around. I also I really like cooking, and I have explicitly like, except for like every once in a while, like I'll post pictures of food that I make, or like I'll make like kind of a shitty TikTok, but I have like promised my friends, not me, I promised my friends because they care about me, that I will never monetize like the amount of cooking that I do. Because that's like my like very chill time. Like that's when I'll just I make a lot of food for my dog. I make him a lot of like little like accoutrement to go over his like kibble and stuff. Yeah. So sometimes just like chopping up 3 really big carrots for my dog is like zen. To just like vibe and just be like, all right, nope, I'm these carrots are for chomp. I'm gonna put on the latest like top 10 from Eurovision. And I'm going to chop carrots for a while and make my dog some food. So,
right on. All right, I think this is actually a good place to bookend it.
Sure.
Tappy, so thank you so much for doing this with me. And what's the best place for people to find you on the internet, or where you would like to be found?
Well, thank you so much. This was a really, really fun time. So. I had a great time. I'm Tappy Toe Claws everywhere. I'm TappyToeClaws. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, if anybody uses that still. TikTok now, which I'm trying to get better at. I'm still really bad. I'm still definitely like a TikTok boomer. I'm on Patreon in the same name, and Twitch on there. So I think that's everything. That's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the evening where you are.
Thank you so much. You too.